Yes, it has.
It has. Thank you. I would like to welcome everyone to today's meeting, and if the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building by the nearest exit. In the correction to the information in the agenda pack, please discount pages 9 and 10, which are an old version of the public information used on the council agenda. To vacate the building in the case of a fire alarm, please use the exit through the reception, through the canteen, or through the double doors behind you. And no fire drills are expected this morning, so if an alarm does go off, it is for rel. Please do not run, leave your kit behind, just walk quietly out of the doors, please. Thank you. Please note that the Council is webcasting this meeting live on the internet and making an official recording. The recording forms part of the public record of the meeting and will be available on the Council's website. Can members please ensure mobile phones are turned off and that background noise is kept to a minimum? To help everyone hear clearly, members are asked to remain seated and to speak clearly. Throughout this meeting, the Vice Chairperson will keep a list of members intending to speak during the debates. The Vice Chairperson will call the next speaker during debates and will announce your microphone number on the desk before you, as we've done before in the last few meetings. When you are called on to speak, please raise your microphone number to be announced, and this will ensure your microphone will be turned on. I should also remind everyone that filming, photography, and recording of this meeting is permitted, provided that it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. If there are any members of the public who do not wish to be filmed or photographed, and who have not already informed a member of staff, please raise your hand now so that any such photographer or cameraman may be aware. Contributions to the meeting will be timed in accordance with the time limits for debates. When your time is up, I will ask you to finish the sentence you are on and stop speaking. Your compliance will be much appreciated. Later at this meeting, I will propose a reordering of the agenda to take the leader's report as the first substantive item of business, following questions from members of the Council. I would like to draw members' attention to the email I circulated yesterday, which set out arrangements for the leader's report. I will seek to group questions from members under the topic headings contained in the report. Once the question has been asked and answered, I will call for all other questions on the same subject matter before moving on to the next topic. I will also allow more than one question from members, but up to a maximum of 3 questions overall. And I will provide preference to members who have not previously asked a question. Please avoid asking questions already asked, and note very carefully that this is an opportunity to ask a question, not to make a speech, and I will ask you to pose a question if one does not appear almost immediately. Thank you. Also, a welcome to Hilary Hall, our new Corporate Director of Community Wellbeing. Is she still in the room? She is. Oh, she's on the screen, is she? That's fine. Well, it's very good to see her back in Herefordshire. She was a very helpful and useful member of Children's Services many years ago when I was Chairman of Children's Services. And it is a real pleasure to see her back in Herefordshire. And she's going to be living in Herefordshire too, I'm very glad to say. So she'll know exactly what's going on and nothing will miss her, I'm sure. Thank you. Item 1, apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillors Polly Andrews, Councillor Bartlett, Chowns, Probert, Simons and Tyler, also Councillors Milmore, Johnson and Roan. Item 2, to receive declarations of interest in respect of Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 interests. And the next item is to receive those declarations of interest by members in respect of items on this agenda. Members who have declared an interest and withdrawn from the meeting will be readmitted once the item has been concluded. Do any members have any interests to declare? Councillor Johnson, you're here. I'm sorry. I said you thought you had your apologies, but good to see you. Thank you. No interest to declare? Thank you. Item 3, minutes. To approve and sign the minutes of the annual meeting of Council held on the 20th of May. No matters of accuracy have been notified to the monitoring officer. Members, are you in agreement with the minutes of the annual meeting held on the 20th of May? Please show. Thank you. That is agreed. We now come to the Chairman and Chief Executive's announcements. I've had, as usual, a busy time, and some of the outstanding moments were the service of Thanksgiving in the Cathedral for the 40th anniversary of the Falklands War. And I think we had some very moving and very apposite addresses made. And I think everyone who attended thought it was a tremendously worthwhile occasion. And we had the Royal Three Counties show launch. I had the privilege of making the introductory address, and it was a very good day. I think the weather spoiled it later on a little bit, but nothing's really spoils the Three Counties show. The Royal Three Counties show. And then we've had the various military days, and they were impressive. And again, it was good to see the turnout, and good to think so many people are in support. We had also the Commonwealth Baton relay, and I was told by the officials accompanying the Baton that Hereford, the city of Hereford, provided the best and the most enthusiastic turnout of any other city they'd been to. So that was very encouraging. Well done, Hereford. And we also went to the Violette Zaba 100th anniversary celebration. She was a famous and extremely brave SOE operative, and she was murdered at the very end of the war in Dachau, I think, I'm not quite sure. We also had a fly-past by a hurricane, which was wonderful. So we were very lucky. And then we had the royal visit by the Princess Royal to the Haven Hereford's farm. Beautifully done. She seemed very happy, and it was a very pleasant occasion. And their farm is absolutely immaculate. They've been breeding Herefords for 200 years, and their Hereford blood is all over the world and has been the foundation stock for so many farming operations throughout the world. And if you look at your old cowboy films, you'll see most of the cattle are Herefords, just so how important it is to you. And also, we attended the presentation of the High Sheriff's Award to a remarkable family. The father already has the George Medal, but the two boys, his two sons, noticed someone on the old bridge in Hereford, who looked in trouble. Father was asked to turn round. They turned round. They talked the woman down several times. Police were called, and all was in the end resolved satisfactorily. But it was a close call, and they performed wonders. And it was a great privilege to see them receive their awards from the High Sheriff. And just to remind you again, at the close of this meeting at the full council, the Chief Fire Officer of the Hereford and Worcester Fire and Rescue Service will be in the conference room to address members and answer questions. Item 5, questions from members of the public. There have been 5 questions submitted under this item. The questions and responses have been published as a supplement on the 28th of July. A supplementary question must be a question and not a statement, and arise directly out of the original question or the reply, and must take no longer than 1 minute to ask. If the question is likely to exceed 1 minute, or it takes the form of a statement, the questioner will be requested to put the question immediately. Ms. Liddell, you have a question? Thank you. You have a microphone? Good.
You said in your answer to my original question that equality impact assessments are carried out when new policy or practice is developed. So was an equality impact assessment carried out when the guidance on peer-on-peer sexual abuse was first developed, and can we see it?
Councillor Toynbee? Can't hear you at the moment.
Oh, sorry.
07?
Can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. I'll provide a written answer to that. The equality impact assessments are really important, especially in this area, yeah.
Thank you.
So you don't know if they've been done?
No, I'll have to check.
We will all have the answers circulated to us later on when they've been formulated. Thank you. We now have a question from Dr. McLean, and I'll read out his question. A claim is made in answer to my question as follows. Sorry? Lady doctor. It's a lady doctor. I'm sorry, my apologies. Well, she's still a doctor, either way, Dr. McLean. And so I'll start again. If a matter is not pursued through the criminal process, then the guidance is available to assist schools in such cases. The answer does not specify what guidance, and I know that there is zero written guidance for schools from the Council or indeed from the Department of Education about the decision-making process when a criminal case is closed, which in law must include a proper investigation in accordance with the procedural obligations under Article 3. The public has repeatedly asked the Director of Children's Services to demonstrate that he and his team understand and can explain to schools the substantive and procedural obligations under Article 3, which are not case-specific. The Director and his team appear unable to do this, despite being asked by members of the public on more than one occasion. We are being asked to believe that the Children's Service is capable of offering training to schools on these matters, and we are asked to accept that when schools come to the Council for advice, that the advice takes full account of Article 3. There is a massive credibility gap developing here. If the Director and his team are capable of advising and training schools on these matters, why will they not set out the procedural obligations under Article 3 when schools are investigating a credible allegation of sexual violence? Councillor Toynbee? Yes. 07, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question. Yes, that article is particularly relevant to peer-on-peer abuse in schools, and as is mentioned in the question, there is a lack at national level from DFE and in all councils around the country. There's very little explicit detail gone into because, as we know, all cases are so different. But I think we possibly can be more explicit in our written guidance, and we're looking into that, and I always welcome examples of what that might look like. And as far as training is concerned, I do have confidence in our training for schools. We're always improving it. We're putting training together now at the moment for the autumn, and that's even more effective than guidance, written guidance, because we can work through exactly what happens in specific cases, specific circumstances, and how decisions are made and how we can best support and guide schools through that.
Thank you. Do you wish to send a written
Yes, I'm very
response
happy
as well?
to, yeah.
Thank you. That'd be very useful, I think. We then come to a supplementary question from Ms. Atfield. You've said in your reply that you're satisfied that schools have all the most up-to-date guidance available. However, the Council received clear QC opinion on the relevant HRA articles, and this is not reflected in the guidance, so by definition, it cannot be up to date. A school would not be able to understand the significance when applying the guidance without the inclusion of these important issues. It is difficult to comprehend the Council's resistance to commissioning an update of its guidance to schools, given that it has already obtained the QC's opinion. When will the Council be considering the articles mentioned in my and others' questions to make sure that schools do understand their significance when applying the guidance to a particular set of facts, as this response lacks a clear time frame and risks not being completed? Councillor Toynbee, 07, please, again.
Thank you. I mean, as far as up-to-date advice is concerned, that is true because, you know, these are schools' responsibilities and the guidance is a national DFE guidance to schools, and that is being changed all the time, and schools all have the most up-to-date guidance. As far as answering the second question is concerned, when will we consider making this more explicit? Now, we are doing that now.
Thank you, Councillor. Again, perhaps a little summary of your
Yes,
remarks.
of course. Yeah,
Thank you. Now we have an anonymous in-person question, I think. Do we have the person here, please? Not on camera, but in person. Your question, please.
Councillor Dombey's answer gives a link to a mediation service set up, she writes, to fulfil the promise of a process of reconciliation for families affected by the Council's failures on peer-on-peer sexual abuse. Yesterday I tried the email address. The message was undeliverable. I rang the phone number. I spoke to a woman called Imogen. I explained why I was ringing. She sounded confused and explained that her service helps separated parents come to an agreement about children and finances. I said, "So you can't help with peer-on-peer abuse?" She said, "No, I'm afraid that's not what we do." There is no mediation service for families affected by peer-on-peer abuse. Members are being sold another myth, and the families are on the receiving end of another empty promise. On the same council webpage advertising the non-existent peer-on-peer abuse mediation service is a link to the Care Concerns email for anyone with concerns about the way they or a child has been treated by children's social care. Yesterday I spoke to a family who contacted that email over a year ago. They haven't even had an acknowledgement. Members who attended the demonstration on Monday with families know they are not the only family in this position. The Council has harmed children through poor practice, and it is continuing to harm families by failing to deal honestly, openly and swiftly with concerns. When the process of reconciliation was first mooted, families said that the bedrock of reconciliation is the truth. But as you will see from Councillor Toynbee's response to my question, there's still a complete disconnect between what members are being told and reality. I would just ask all members to ask for evidence-based responses on all matters relating to children's services.
Thank you. I've had a comment made for, do we have a timeline as well for responses? And Councillor Toynbee, 07 again, please.
Yes, thank you. I agree that responding to concerns is really important and it's our priority, and obviously I'll be checking this and looking into it immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Shaw, in person, I believe. Thank you.
It is astonishing that a written answer about peer-on-peer sexual abuse referred to a piece of Human Rights Act which doesn't exist. Members should understand that this mistake wasn't a slip of a pen. So the full sentence, now redacted, was as follows. Section 26 of the Human Rights Act in 1998 sets out that schools and colleges should be aware of their obligations under the HRA. So that whole statement is meaningless because the section doesn't exist and exposes the fact that the officers do not understand the Human Rights Act sufficiently to be able to advise or train schools on it. I repeat what others have said, that currently there is no guidance at all on schools for how they have to have due regard for Articles 3, 8 and 14 of the Human Rights Act.
What is your question?
You just asked it me as I was
good.
about to ask it.
Thank you.
Will the Council commit today to ensuring that the procedural obligations determining the rights of a victim of sexual violence under Article 3 and Article 8 are clearly explained in writing to schools so there is no risk of discrimination against girls?
Thank you very much, Ms. Shaw. Councillor Tom, would you like to respond to that? And 07, please.
Yes, I agree about the risk of discrimination against girls, and that is clearly set out in the Human Rights Act, and there are key phrases that are set out in there that we share. As far as understanding the law is concerned, it's really important that our safeguarding officers do understand that. And as far as interpreting the law is concerned, I'm at risk of repeating some of the written answers. There are certain things that we can set out in advance in guidance, but there are also things, as far as interpretation is concerned, that would get very, very long-winded in written guidance and are better done in a training situation, looking at specific cases and interacting with DSLs, governing bodies, teachers, anybody who comes along to the training, because it's even more effective if that's done in an interactive way. Not everything can be set out in writing in advance because all cases are so different. But I take on board everything that you've said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And again, perhaps a summary response would be in writing would be very
Certainly,
useful to us all. Thank you. That is all the questions from members of the public. Item 6, questions from members of council. We have none. So now we will go on to item 9. And as I said before, we have brought forward the leader's report to the top of the meeting as far as substantive items go, because he has to go with other members and officers to attend upon the Ofsted team. So, item 9, leader's report, pages 45 to 78. The paging is still okay. And this is to, receive a report from the leader on the activities of the Executive Cabinet since the meeting of Council on the 4th of March 2022. Please find the leader's report from page 45. I invite the leader to present the report and to respond to any questions arising, and he has 5 minutes to present his report.
Thank you, Chairman. Hopefully you can hear me.
Can you be heard?
I don't have a number.
Can we have on the top table, please?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chairman. I don't have an introductory speech at this occasion, but we'll go straight into any questions. My paper is there, so through the Chair.
Thank you. Members are reminded that they may ask up to 3 questions overall upon different sections of this report, but there will be no debate on matters contained in it. Please remember that. I remind members that this is an opportunity to ask a question of the leader. And please, can members be brief when posing their question and avoid repeating points already covered? As already outlined at the start of the meeting, I will group questions along topic headings, and please note that this is an opportunity to ask a question, not to make a speech. I will ask you to pose a question if one does not appear forthcoming. The Vice Chairperson will be keeping a list of members who wish to question. Please, can members indicate if they have a question, and you will have 3 minutes each. Now, first question.
Councillor Gandhi, number 2.
Thank you. I refer to page 58, which is the appendix regarding decisions taken from March to July, and includes the Public Realm Services Annual Plan. I've brought this, I've raised it under this item because I can't find anywhere else to raise it, and it's more through desperation than anything else. In the public realm annual plan, 2 bridges in my ward have been renovated. One of those bridges at Baton is dangerous in its design, and a small 2-year-old child almost fell right through the bridge into the river below. I have raised this happened 3 months ago. I have raised this matter with Balfour Beatty, with the portfolio holder, with more recently the chief executive, but nothing has been done. We are now in the height of the summer season. We have a number of tourists in that area. Anybody who knows children will know that small children's heads weigh more than their bodies, and so it is fairly easy for a small child looking through a bridge to topple over. And this child was only saved by the foot catching of her grandfather. When can I expect remedial work on this particular bridge to take place? I accept that legally it is not my responsibility, but morally, if something happens at that bridge, I will feel personally responsible for it because I know it is a risk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a response?
Thank you, Councillor Gandhi. The detail is something I don't have, and perhaps I could ask my colleague, Councillor Harrington, who might have more information. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Harrington, 06.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Gandhi. We have spoken about this, and I have checked with officers about it. The point you raise is a very interesting point. At what point do we stop having to provide protection on everything that is the responsibility of parents who are taking their children along that pathway or along that road? And that's the point here. This bridge did not have that guardrail before. What we're talking about potentially is putting some netting in or some mesh. I've asked if it's possible. We've asked for the opinion of Balfour's. Balfour's have come back and said it is, in their opinion, not a safety risk that is significant. However, I have asked that we double check that and provide you with an answer, so at least it is on record that you have raised this and it has been either discounted or actioned, and I will make sure that is done before the end of next week.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Now, do we have other questions on this particular topic? Vice Chairperson?
Yes, I've got a list of other councillors who wish to speak.
Yes. Are they on this topic, then?
No. Okay, so Councillor Phillips.
Councillor Phillips, what is your topic? Item 12, please. Well, not item, but number 12 on the panels.
Yes, Chairman, it follows up on the delivery of improvements into the infrastructure and public realm. I am concerned that we took in the PROW and TRO teams on April the 1st, but I am aware that both those teams are under extraordinary pressure and are struggling to deliver. What reassurance can the leader and cabinet member give me that they are actually putting some capacity into these teams? And the cabinet member will be aware in particular that I have a particular issue with the Gate Bridge blockage, which does need to be done as a matter of emergency in the next few weeks.
Thank you, Councillor.
Again, Chair, if I could pass that on to Councillor Harrington.
06, Councillor Harrington, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Phillips. There's no doubt that bringing PROW and public and traffic management in-house has caused us some pressures. It's been something that we either didn't do for 3 years or whatever it's going to be, or we did now. I think it was important that we did it. We did do it. We have recruited an inspector, we have recruited a volunteer coordinator, and we have unfortunately we have lost 2 members of the team who have retired, but we are recruiting those as well. So there are pressures. We have a meeting with all the footpath officers in September, because the only way we are going to get value out of the limited money that we have is to make sure that our very dedicated volunteers, our ramblers, our local access forum members, the British Horse Society are all helping work with us. And we are now redesigning the website so that we are able to both put clear reports on there, and that we are also able to allow volunteers who have been trained to take those reports off and do the work themselves. So there is much progress being made. It has been difficult, and I will provide a clear timeline and a clear understanding of what roles are filled and what roles aren't at the moment. But I'm utterly convinced and confident that moving it in-house was the best thing to do. But unfortunately, there have been difficulties. Can I just say, if anyone has any difficulties, I hear lots of talk of difficulties, but if there's anyone specific, please get in touch with me and I'll make sure it goes through, because very often I think there's a perception that we've got a lot more money suddenly when we brought it in-house and that everything that's been outstanding for years was going to get done. Unfortunately, that's not the case, but we have asked for a capital bid and we will hope to try and go in and do as many of the backlog that we've got. And by doing it with our volunteers, we'll be able to get extraordinary value for money from a very dedicated and valuable set of the population. In relation to the bridge you mentioned, we've had to go and check with the Environment Agency first of all. We've now asked Balfour Beatty to go on there and clear it, and I'll update you as soon as possible, Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Councillor, and perhaps you'll circulate the timeline for us all. Thank you. And now...
Yes, next speaker is Councillor Matthews, number 21.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I wish to ask a question of the leader in respect of phosphate concerns within the county. First of all, I would like to thank, on behalf of my colleagues and myself, all those who have worked tirelessly to address this issue, both members and officers. You've done a first-class job and you've got our full support. I noticed that the report says that a further reduction from water companies and other sources have come about, which is to be welcomed, but there's a further 5% increase from agricultural workers, which is again causing a concern because of pollution, including runoff. Does the leader agree with me that this matter is only going to be addressed in the proper manner when government money is put into the issue and legal enforcement is brought about? And therefore, will he consider asking the both MPs to attend our next council meeting after the council or before, whatever, so that we can question them on their views and their activity to deal with this worrying issue?
Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. I think just as a kind of procedural point about how we're trying to run this meeting, so we're trying to group questions together, and I think we are thrown a bit of a googly by being asked something in the appendix.
I agree.
So we'll sort of start as if we hadn't started off with the appendix. So we'll look at phosphates now, and I've got Councillor James waving his paddle very fiercely. I don't know whether he's in a boat somewhere trying to paddle.
Can we just stop a moment and try and put these things into topics, not just random questions? Yeah. Councillor James and Councillor Durkin, you've both got questions, I think. Yes.
I mean, this is in danger of being a shambles. You know, we started off, we were going to do it on topics, and then we went straight to the appendix.
It is difficult, I agree. I would ask you, perhaps...
Well, it's not working, and it can't work, because until we know what people are putting their hands up for, and when you're dealing with what the topic is when you start, we don't know what we're... You know, where are we going to...
I think it might well be easier now that we seem to be getting into a confused state to just go through the questions one by one as people put their hands up. I really do, if that's all right with you all. We will try and work out some more, shall we say, structured system for next time. But I think we've had Councillor Durkin put up his hand very early on, and I think he deserves a crack at the whip.
Number 3.
3. We come back to you, don't worry. None of you we missed. Well, we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you, not forgotten. But Councillor Durkin was very early on.
Thank you, Chairman. And this is a theme question relating to the highways management team. I'm referring to page 53, item 56, the performance review, and also 56 on page 64. I have concerns about the highways management team in service for the people of Herefordshire. It's noted that the highways management team moved back to Herefordshire Council this year. In the team, there were three professional officers, among whom They did the SIDS and traffic regulation. There's no future proofing as in time. As Councillor Harrington has said, they are now employing. Now, one of the officers retires today. Another officer retires within 2 weeks. That leaves just one officer in the team to deal with everything. The reason I raise this is because I had a specific incident related to a SID, a speed indicator device, and the message that came back was no can do. I know the staffing levels of the management is not sufficient in number, and the thought of having to advertise now is a bit late. It should have been done some time ago, knowing that people are retiring and going on to other places. My question is, how are you going to ensure that the people of Herefordshire have an effective and efficient highways management service now, which is important because things have been put onto lists now and into the future? Would it be by employing more expensive consultants? Because Balfour BT do not have the expertise in-house to actually deal with it now. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Leader?
Yeah, again, I'm going to pass this over to Councillor Harrington.
Councillor Harrington, 06.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Durkin. I presume by highways management you mean traffic management team that's come in-house. Yeah, okay. So you raise a very good point, and there's no denying that unfortunately 2 of the operatives who have come over have gone off to work on the Welsh 20 mile an hour, or one of them has gone off to work on the Welsh 20 mile an hour. So we have lost people that we didn't know we were going to lose, and now as you say, we're trying to recruit those as soon as possible. At the moment, we still use ADL, who do our work for us, which are the consultants that we use through Balfour's. What the ideal situation would be is that we would want to increase more officers and use ADL less. And that's in plan at the moment. I'm not aware of any particular delays at the moment. If there are, please come directly to me. And if it's just a queuing issue rather than something that's not being dealt with, it'll be a queuing issue. But if it's something that hasn't been dealt with, I will deal with that, Councillor, and get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Very good point raised about SIDS. That's true. We're failing to get back on those and deal with those at the moment, and we will do. Yeah, and point taken.
Well, that's very useful. Thank you. I think we had some questions over here, did we not?
Yes, next speaker, Councillor Norman. Number 15.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that working? Right, back to phosphates and an issue which I think is of huge concern, increasing.
Hang on. Sorry, just stop a moment.
I think that if Councillor Matthews was the first one to ask a question on phosphates, I think actually, in all fairness, I should start off with
Yes, you should. And then talk to Councillor Norman, please. Councillor Matthews, you have a response now.
Do you want to repeat your question, Councillor Matthews? Thank you. If you can remember, but if you can't remember, I did.
Just
yeah,
the question.
Thank you.
Number 21, please.
I was just having a little rest then. Yeah, well, what I said was thanking all members of staff and members. I know some councillors have worked tirelessly on this phosphate issue, and we're grateful to them, and they have our full support. Then the other issue was about the improvements from Welsh water and other sources, which is welcomed. Then I asked you that, do you agree with me that it's only substantial government money and legal enforcement action to be taken before this matter will be truly addressed? And therefore, can you invite both our MPs to attend after their next council meeting for us to question him on this issue and on other issues that are of concern?
Thank you. Leader, okay, it's direct to you, I think.
Yeah. Government money. It's quite interesting. We've just had a letter from George Eustace and Greg Clark to us about nutrient pollution. There are various suggestions in this letter about the work which we've been doing without specifically giving us credit for it. But they obviously, as a letter from government, it's telling us how wonderful they're doing and how much money they're putting into everything. But there are 2 or 3 things I'd perhaps mention about this letter. It talks about insisting in England to upgrade, the sewage companies will have to upgrade waste treatment works to the highest technical achievable level by 2030. So that is a huge commitment, I think it refers to its highest technical achievable limits. There's no qualification about cost or reasonableness or anything like that, which it strikes me as being absolutely extraordinary. But the suggestion, in a way, is that water companies are the ones who are responsible for this, and the costs of that will, I'm afraid, fall on all us as residents, because I think the water companies will only be able to achieve this with an extraordinary amount of money. They've got going to have 5 or 6 years to achieve it, but you know, that is the way of things. So hopefully that will make a significant effect on phosphates, because it will take out that waste coming out of the sewage treatment plant. So that's not government money. That is going to be money which I think will be from you and I. In the context of legal enforcement, yes, the government is saying they've appointed a lot of new people in the country to enforce the Environment Agency conditions. We ourselves are looking at what we might do about employing some officers ourselves to look at ensuring that the manure management plans are being properly followed, and any other planning conditions are being followed, but that is another pressure on us to get people to work on that. You ask about MPs. Jesse Norman has got a group together already to try to work and help with this. If it's the view of Council that you would like a meeting with the two MPs, I'm only happy to write to them and invite them to come to a meeting. I get certainly nods from one side of the house here.
I think Leader, that would be very welcome among most councillors, at any rate. So can we perhaps put that in motion? Thank you. Another one on the now, I think Councillor Norman. Sorry, just your question, please. 15.
Thank you very much. Well, part of my question has already been raised, and I have to say I absolutely agree with Councillor Matthews, the points that he's made, and would welcome our MPs being brought to discuss with us the issue that we're facing. Really all I need to perhaps add, having listened to the answer of the leader, is really to say that I understand that the wet system we're employing is unique, is perhaps the first, maybe. We have wet systems in the county for other uses, and they seem to be hugely successful. But in this particular case, I understand this may well be the first instance. So I ask the leader to respond to that, really, and applaud the opportunity to address things in this way. Thank you.
Thank you. Leader, do you want to do words?
Thank you, Councillor Norman. I think there are wetlands elsewhere in the country, but this is the first one which is linked to nutrient neutrality, and the first one where evidence has been gathered so we can actually prove to the satisfaction of Natural England that it's having a positive effect on nutrients in the river. So to that extent, it is the very first. There was a meeting yesterday which some of you might have attended. Seem to be so many meetings these days, at which we were told that the diggers are now on site, so in hopefully the next week or so there will be water coming out of the sewage treatment plant and going into these reed beds, and it's tremendously exciting. We are, yes, the first in the country to be doing that, and we should be shouting from the hilltops about what we are doing. Thank you.
And I shall be closely monitoring this, as is in my ward, at a personal level. But it will be very interesting. I'm very glad we're doing it. Thank you.
Chair, it's worth adding...
sorry?
I was just going to add, it's worth adding that Herefordshire has had the first wet system full stop for other issues as well. So we're leading the way, you know, not just in this instance, but earlier as well.
Thank you. Yes, we can talk about that later, I think. Can we have any other questions related to phosphates, please? Councillor Hewitt, and James, and then anyone else? And thank you. Have you got all this?
James, now have, yeah.
Right. What number are you, Councillor Hewitt?
22.
22, please. Ask your question.
Okay, so I can't be the only councillor that falls into that category. If you look in the appendices, it talks about rural sewage treatment work capacity, and we have had exponential growth in some of our rural areas for a complex variety of reasons. And I would like to ask that our planning department, and I'd like to ask the Cabinet member if she would consider working with the evidence of citizen science, where it's showing quite clearly that when our consultee, Welsh Water, says there is capacity and a question has arisen around it, that they will somehow back our local residents and our watercourses by saying, OK, Welsh Water, we'd like to have a conversation about this because we're getting alternative evidence. And if we don't do that, waiting till 2030 means that we are going to continue to pollute our small water bodies, which means that we will continue to pollute the main stem of our river, which means that we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. So that's the question. Can I have that commitment, please?
Leader?
I think I'll pass this on to Councillor Harvey. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. 05.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt, for that question. Yeah, it's really important to be making sure that these small treatment works are actually operating as they're supposed to. So if Welsh Water is providing our planners with assurances that capacity exists, I'm very happy to look at how we work with citizen science and local evidence gatherers to make sure that Welsh Water are actually able to evidence the assertions that they make as part of our planning process.
Thank you. More phosphates?
Councillor James, number 9.
Sorry, Chairman, it wasn't on this particular subject.
So, Councillor Mike Jones.
I think it was.
Mike Jones, right. Councillor Mike Jones, number 19, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. You said in the last council meeting, the leader, that the first wetland pond would be in June. You've now updated us to the next sort of week. Can you tell me how many other sites that you've got targeted for wetlands? Because I understood one time it was going to be 8, and Shobden and other places. And could you also say how much it costs to purchase that land for that first site at Leston?
Thank you. Leader.
Yes, Councillor Jones, thank you. I can't give you that figure. I don't know if there's a cabinet member who actually does have that figure. Councillor Harrington is desperately waving his paddle. So,
06.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Some of the information obviously is going to be privileged, because if you're trying to buy land, you don't want to be telling everyone where you're trying to buy land. There was initially 8. We were hoping to get 8 wetlands. We're certainly actively looking at another 3 at the moment. I can get as much detail as we can share to all councillors, all members, as soon as possible. And the cost that we can share, I'll make sure they're shared as well.
Thank you very much. It's very helpful. Right. Any more phosphates? No. Could we have then the next topic question? Who's offering?
So, Councillor Lester, number 4.
Right. Councillor Lester. 04.
Thank you, Chairman. My question relates to Children's Services, the improvement plan, page 46. Can I receive an assurance from the Leader of the Council that for those parents who have had their children taken into care and where the family now wish to be reunited, that this Council will make every effort to make this happen? I appreciate that for various reasons this cannot always be achieved. However, where the family wish this to be the case, surely every effort must be made to bring this about. Thank you.
Leader, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Lester. Yes, you can have that assurance from me. You have a familiarity with this particular portfolio and the issues. The preferred route is always for children to remain with their immediate family, if that's something which can be achieved. That is shown to be the best route for the child, but obviously there are instances where that is not appropriate. As the political leader of the council, I do not have the expertise to deliver solutions and make a judgment myself. I must leave that to the officers, which include all the social workers. And I think I'll just leave it at that. I think it's a very good question, and yes, you do have my assurance. Thank you.
Thank you. More questions on that particular topic? Do we have? This is the same topic, is it? Thank you. Councillor Swinklehurst, number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question relates to improvements in children's services. Local authority leaders who have made this journey from inadequate to good tend to emphasise the importance of staff stability as a prerequisite for improvement. So I would be interested in having an update on the current level of staff stability and how many social workers a child might expect to have within a 12-month period as an average. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Leader, do you want to reply or do you want to pass it on?
Well, I think I can certainly provide some information. I think we now have 2 heads of service who are permanent employees. We haven't had permanent ones in place for some time. And we're working at that level at the moment to get permanent people in place to change the culture and gradually work through the organisation. Staff stability is really very, very important for children. It's something which, as you rightly say, occurs in a lot of councils. It's not unique to Herefordshire. And when you do get permanent people and you do get the same social worker who's working with a family for a decent period of time, it makes such a difference to the child and to the family, and I think it probably gives an awful lot more job satisfaction to the social workers. So we want to be working towards that. So I think we'll provide a written answer. I don't know whether Councillor Toynbee, we will provide a written answer, but thank you for raising that important issue. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think a written answer will be very useful to us all. Councillor Gemma Davis, number 05.
Thank you, Leader, and it's following on from Councillor Swinglehurst's question. I work for the NHS. I know about staff turbulence, especially at the moment. I think for a context perspective, the written answer that you're going to provide on staff, I would like to see more of a written answer that also includes benchmarking against other local authorities, because I think sometimes when we're here we think we're on our own with all of these problems, and I don't believe that that's the case, and I would like to allow some context to that for my own benefit to see, are we an outlier here, or is this the standard of social care across the country? Thank you.
That is your question, basically. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
do you want to respond to that?
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Yes, we will include that in the answer. What goes through my mind a little bit is that Herefordshire is an enormously attractive place for people to live, but not enough people know about it. You work for the NHS. There are similar issues for the NHS as we have in the council, and we need to be working together with the NHS in order to recruit people and encourage people to come to the county. We shouldn't be competing with each other. We should be working together to encourage people to come to this fabulous place. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions from Children's Services?
Yes, Chairman. Next speaker is Councillor Ianson.
Ianson and Councillor James.
Number 1.
On Children's Services, is it? Thank you. Councillor Ianson, number
1.
Number 1, please. What's your question?
Yes, I'm afraid the leader will probably give the same response, but my question was, following on from previous questions and also the questions from members of the public, why is this council losing so many officers in this, children's and all its departments?
Thank you. Very concise question. Leader.
I think we'll provide you with a written answer to that, Councillor Janssen, because there may be some myths around the number of staff who we're actually losing, and we'd like to perhaps provide some benchmarking for other councils just to show where we kind of sit with that. Sorry?
Yeah, always. Every response should be to all councillors, not just one person. That's a given as far as I'm concerned, and I think you are in agreement with that too, are you not? Yeah, thank you. Councillor James, Children's Services? Yes. Off you go.
Can I just also say that the problem is you're making appointments, but you're making appointments regularly from failing authorities throughout the country. A number of appointments have been recently made from an authority which is likely to go into intervention, and the feeling amongst people in that particular authority is that they will. And they've moved, and this is a problem, I think, in children's services, that people actually move.
I think he's about to make your question, aren't you, Councillor?
Yes,
James?
I'm going to do that. And what monitoring is going on? People are leaving the authority and not being interviewed on the reason why. At least one member of staff left and wanted an exit interview and was denied one. For reasons I won't go into.
The question...
But is... Chairman, can you let people finish what they're saying?
Yes.
Sorry. There was a recent demonstration outside here of families. There was a particularly poignant statement, speech by a lady there that every member should have heard. It was a lady with learning difficulties who'd had their children taken away from them. It was probably one of the most effective speeches that I've ever heard. Although she had learning difficulties, she was far more articulate than most councillors, I have to say. And her passion was unquestioned. Does he not feel ashamed when he heard that statement about the way in which families and mothers, bearing in mind that we have the highest rate of children taken into care for FFI reasons, that means imaginary problems with their children, health problems with their children, in the country. It's something like 10,000% higher than any other, than the most authorities in the country. Does he not, when he heard that speech by that lady, which I do recommend that when there is going to be a meeting at which councillors are invited to, where families can actually make those statements, that they attend, did he not feel ashamed when he heard that speech?
Thank you, Councillor. Leader?
Yes, there are a number of points in there, Councillor James. You mentioned about a particular member of staff not having the opportunity for an exit interview, and I'd be grateful if you'd let me know the name of that member of staff so we can actually follow up on that, because they should be given exit interviews. You mentioned about the FFI. I think you had a figure of 10,000% higher than others. I did take up this with the director straight after the public meeting, and he assured me that such a figure is just not right. And we will provide you and other councillors with an update of the FFI figure in the county compared to our probably comparator counties. Yes, the particular lady was very impressive with her speech. It's very often the case that fewer words are better than lots. I can't comment on particular cases. But I'm afraid I did not get that lady's name. I got the names of other ladies, but if you were able to pass on her name to me, I would be grateful, and we will follow up on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Any more questions on children's services or different?
Please, for everybody.
I can't hear you.
FFI? Could you... FFI, not everybody understands what that means.
Yes. I can give you an idea. It's people, it's kind of, hopefully I'm not being, it's kind of feigned illness, so it's not actually real illness. So people are pretending that they're ill, but they actually aren't. So and they would do it for particular reasons. They want some extra treatment, extra time, extra services because they are feigning this. And the social workers have to make an assessment as to whether the people are being genuine or not. And I think Councillor James's point is that in the county we are having a lot more people who are monitored and registered in this way. And I think there's some question marks over who actually makes that judgment call. Is it the social worker who does it by themselves, or is it the psychologist, or whether? So hopefully that gives you a bit of background.
Thank you.
Yeah, Munchausen by proxy. Yeah. Munchausen by proxy. Okay, thank you. Oh.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, who's the next one?
So next speaker is Councillor Kenyon.
Councillor Kenyon.
Number 26.
26.
Thank you, Chairman. 2 simple questions, and hopefully I'll get 2 really simple answers. The staff, can you remind councillors the staff structure around legal teams that work within children's services? So that's a reminder set out, and that we look at the structure, because historically it hasn't been working the greatest. I'd like to think I think there's about £6 million pumped into it to historically to pay stuff that's already been done, but you'd like to think some of that money is going to be used going forward. So I'd like to know we're getting best value for money for the 6 million we've put in. How is structure laid out? Do we need more legal secretaries and less solicitors? Because we all know that legal secretaries are the ones that actually do the work. And then hopefully we'll be able to get the support for the social workers within Herefordshire that they need and strive to get, and we can get the best results for the children within our county.
Thank you.
I will, along with the other responses from this meeting, we'll include a structure for the legal department.
And a plan, Leader.
Sorry, and a plan.
And the plan, the structure, but the plan, because it hasn't been working for years. So I'd like to see the new plan that's going to make it work.
I can't promise that, but I will look to
sure being a
officers to. I don't want to put.
I'm sure, being a solicitor yourself, you'll appreciate that the administration staff within the offices do a fantastic job. A bit more of them, a bit less solicitors, better value for money.
Yes, you referred to legal secretaries. There are legal executives, and they are very well qualified and very good people to employ and get and have a really good understanding. So no, it's not just solicitors, but I wouldn't refer to them as legal secretaries, legal executives, and trainees and such. And I'm sure that will come out in any kind of structure which we'll provide to you.
Again,
thank you,
everybody. Thank you very much. Now, do we have another one about children's services?
So
who's first?
Next speaker is Councillor Tillett, number 17.
Councillor Tillett, number 17. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just the very briefest of interventions which may or may not aid the leader in his investigations with regard to this disproportionate diagnosis of FFI or Munchausen's by proxy. The figures that we were given suggest that it is 0.02% of cases nationally. 0.02% nationally. And yet in Hereford, 60 out of 300 cases have been diagnosed in this way. That's 20%, and that is a 10,000% increase, which is such an anomaly that I would implore the leader to look into this. Thank you.
Leader. Oh, sorry. Can you have your number, please? Number 5.
Can I just seek some clarification, possibly from Councillor James? You talk about FFI. Do you mean fabricated or induced illness, which is FII? FYI, then, it's FII.
Something that's so important.
Thank you, all of you. Stop pointing. Manners all round, please, from all sides. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Councillor Tillett, we'll get back to you with that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another question on children's services?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Howells, number 18.
Number 18, please. Off you go. And as soon as possible, a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As Chair of Scrutiny, I just want to make a point about the improvement plan, which clearly the new version does go into a lot more detail.
Is this a question?
Yes.
Please.
I'm going to ask the question. But what we asked for were a set of measures by which we monitored the improvement plan, which we say we'll do quarterly, and it was due to be monitored at the last meeting last week. We have a set of measures, but we do urgently need a set of figures by which we monitor those measures. So the plan urgently needs baseline figures, target figures, and what we've achieved. Those are still not available, so members and the public know that. So I'd like to ask the leader to make a commitment to ensure that by the latest our next scrutiny meeting in September, the plan is updated to make sure that those measures which we've agreed are properly itemised with the figures that the baseline started with, what the ambitions are to improve in each of those areas, and where we are at the moment with each. Otherwise, we aren't actually able to effectively scrutinise the improvement plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Leader?
Yeah, I have the disadvantage of not having attended that meeting, for which I apologise. So it's a little bit difficult for me to know if I'm to promise something which I don't know what I'm promising. I don't know whether there's any cabinet member, whether Councillor Toynbee is able to assist.
Councillor Toynbee, 07, please.
Certainly, thank you, Councillor Howells. Yes, the improvement plan is being updated all the time, and certainly in September there'll be more specific measures, yes.
Thank you. Now, any more questions on children's services? Exercise on that. Next topic. Do we have any?
Councillor Watson, number 25.
Councillor Watson, what is your topic, please?
My topic is the COVID Recovery Fund, about the busset, the free bus journey.
Thank you. Off you go.
I'd like to ask the leader, my understanding is that there was month-on-month growth in terms of the number of free journeys from January to June, about 6,000 additional journeys. Do you know the total number of how many free journeys were taken from January to the end of June, please, Leader?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, the number of free journeys delivered in that 6-month period were 169,716, and it's included 12 additional Sunday services. We've seen a month-on-month growth in the number of free journeys since January. So in January, in round terms, it was 14,000 in January, 15,000 in February, 17,000 in March, 18,000 in April, 19,000 in May and 20,000 in June. So every single month it's gone up, with people obviously being interested in taking advantage of it. I think it's a tremendous value for money. It's going to cost us about £1 million to have provided this service. We need to potentially be putting a case together to central government to say, look, for that sort of price, you can get people on the buses at the weekends. It helps keep those bus companies going. It's as far as I would have, research will prove one way or the other, but there has been a survey of 1,145 people travelling for free, and 94% indicated they would continue to use the bus when it was no longer free. So this may be a great opportunity of getting people onto the buses. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions on the same topic, please?
Councillor Kenyon, number 26.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Bej Varney will be pleased to hear what you just said there, Leader. My question then is to do with the COVID Recovery Fund and how we managed to help the homeless off the streets. You did a fantastic job. They were all homed during it. And the Housing Solutions team did a fantastic job. Unfortunately, there's a couple of contracts. I was contacted last night out of the blue, and I'm quite ashamed of what I heard. One of these contractors hasn't been paid for 3 months. They've been doing work directly for the Housing Solutions team, and I presume from the COVID Recovery Fund. So it's not that we haven't got the money to pay them, but to not be paid for 3 months, I'm sure all of his councillors sat here, if we weren't paid for 3 months, we were jumping up and down. It was through desperation he contacted me last night. I did make the financial officer aware of this beforehand and the chairman, so it's not a surprise. So I'm just wondering if there's an update or an answer I can get from that. There's actually 2 companies that are owed. So my question is, there's been restructuring going on in the Housing Solutions team. Is it working? That's my question. Is it working? Because clearly I don't think it is.
Thank you, Councillor. Leader.
This is one where I'll definitely have to provide a written answer to you, Councillor Kenyon. I don't have information.
Right? And none of your cabinet members have. No, that's fine. Written answer to us all, please. As soon as
Can we
possible.
have an apology to the companies as well?
Well, I'm sure that all that will be part of it as well, and we make sure that it is. Thank you. I'm sure our financial officer. Do you wish to have a very quick comment?
Thanks very much. Chairman, yes, I was made aware of these arrangements, well, our failure to pay, which I apologise unreservedly for. That's unacceptable. I think we'd all recognise that. I will certainly make personal contact with the businesses today to explain the situation. I have started the process of understanding where the blockage is in our system, because we need to get these things unblocked and get the payments made to the suppliers as soon as possible, because we need to support our local businesses.
Thank you very much indeed. That'll please them a lot, I think, and quite right. Next question on a different topic. Councillor.
Councillor Lester, number 4.
Councillor Lester, is this? And then we'll take yours after this. Councillor Lester was before. Which topic is this now?
It's about the place shaping and the progress.
What is your question?
The process that determines the right amount of proposed housing in rural areas is of vital importance to rural communities. I was at a parish council meeting last night, and they explained to me that they have spent a considerable amount of time and energy engaging and responding with a place-shaping consultation concerning the new plan that will determine the new houses in Herefordshire. Sadly, they remain as confused as ever, said that the website was difficult to engage with, and remain unclear as to the rationale for a point-scoring system. They're also unclear as to what is meant by certain concepts, and told me that they were in dire need of a glossary. In conclusion, they have little confidence in the way the process has gone so far. So my question is the leader of the council confident that the point-scoring system concerning the calculations for development in the place-shaping paper is the right approach? Thank you.
Thank you. The leader.
I would ask Councillor Harvey to deal with that one. Thank you.
Councillor Harvey, 05, please.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lester. And, I'm always very keen to receive feedback on how these consultations are going. It's an evolving process. We're using an online system, and as and where we can make improvements to the process as we go, I'm really keen that we do that. So feedback is really helpful. So do encourage that parish council to get back to us if they haven't already done so. We have had feedback from a number of parish councils on a number of different areas. Planning is definitely riven with lots of acronyms and abbreviations. So if there isn't an adequate glossary, again, I'll pursue that with officers. As far as the points-based system, I think you might be referring to the assessment that's done of rural communities and settlements in terms of creating some kind of a hierarchy by looking at what their community infrastructure is. This is an approach that was used originally for the 2015 core strategy, local plan, which became our core strategy in 2015. So it is an approach that has been used by previous administrations in preparing the evidence base for their local plans. There needs to be some way of assessing how communities compare with one another in terms of the strength of their local infrastructure. I have had feedback about the granularity of the scoring system in that it's quite coarse for some, and they're questioning whether some services should be considered more important than others, and that there is some multiplier effect. I'm happy to look at that. I think the important thing is that we have some way of looking at communities across our county and identifying the ones that are wobbling in terms of having the potential to lose some of their community infrastructure, and also the ones that are strong, and we want to make sure that they continue to be so. So part of this is trying to understand what communities want for themselves, and the responses that parish councils give are really important. I know that I have asked planners, and they have actually recently put out some additional guidance for all parish councils on how to respond to the latest consultation, which is down at the very local level. And I've asked for officers to be a bit flexible on the end date for the consultation, particularly for parish councils, because they've got infrequent meeting times, and I know that the governance process does limit a full council response. So we're very happy to receive those returns over the summer and into September. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, questions. What have we got?
Next speaker, Chairman, is Councillor Marsh.
Councillor Marsh, number is 16.
16.
It's a question about members' services. I wanted to find out if the leader agreed with me that we have recently had a great deal more training. We have had massively better consultations. The hybrid meetings in the old IT suite are working well. And to my mind, this is the most fabulous full council meeting we have had for a very long time. And I would just like to say, I hope the leader would agree that this is so much better than everything. And many thanks to our IT team and all involved.
Yes.
It's echoing round, John.
Thank you. We thank you all for your input. I'm sure it's been very valuable, and I think from the chair we should say thank you all and well done. And it took a lot of hard work, I think, too. So thanks. Right, another question. Councillor Shaw, is this a new one, or are we talking about? You're on the list already, are you? Vice Chairman? Who is it?
Councillor Ianson, did you?
Or is it Councillor Stark? Councillor Stark's been...
Is it new topic? Okay. On this, okay. Councillor Stark.
No, not on this
17.
subject. No,
Councillor
me
Stark,
on this subject.
Your number?
No, me on this subject.
Councillor,
Tillett.
Sorry.
Can I just put the alternative to the well-received comments just now by Councillor Marsh? As somebody who has suffered skin cancer, the fact that I am now sitting in direct sunlight is less than ideal, and I hope the chair will understand if I have to pull my seat back a bit and possibly even don my hat. So perhaps it's not quite as perfect for all of us, or indeed, in view of climate change, increasing numbers of us with exposure to the sunlight. Thank you.
Some of us who are follically challenged understand your concerns. And now it is Councillor
Stark, number 17.
Number 17, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question is on paragraph 52, the financial year outturn. I notice we've got an underspend of 550,000 or so, which is welcome. But if we hadn't employed the large number of interims across the council, that underspend would have been much better. Now, I do agree that interims do bring with them great knowledge and expertise, some of which we don't have within the council. But their coming and going recently has caused tremendous disruption in the council. Disruption for me as a ward member and trying to build working relationships with them. In fact, some have gone so abruptly, I wondered whether they were a figment of my imagination. Not only that, I have got a question, not only that, it must be very unsettling for the permanent staff to have to pick up the pieces when these interim staff come and go so abruptly. So can I ask the Chair, will he bring forward a plan for managing down the number of interims in this council and to actually have a plan that will increase the prospects of us bringing in more permanent staff so we can bring stability to the workings of this council? Because it's not doing us any favours, it's not doing permanent staff any favours, and it's not doing our residents any favours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Leader, response?
Yes, I think Councillor Stark will be aware it's not my role to manage the workforce, but I can certainly prompt the Chief Executive to look at these sorts of issues. The issue, the recruitment of interims or employment is an interesting one, isn't it? Because when someone leaves, we have to, in some cases, we have to employ someone immediately. We have to go through an interview process following on from that. And some interims do actually provide an enormous amount of value. You can employ an interim for 6 months who does the work of a lot of other people that it would take. We draw on their experience from other councils, and I think one of the issues in Herefordshire is that we haven't had enough people around who know what really good looks like. And by getting interims in, we can hopefully get a better idea, and that will encourage and coach other people in the council. There are some cases where it doesn't work, but you know, we're not perfect in our recruitment. I can, yeah. So I think it's a valid point. Your initial question was about whether we would have made more, had a bigger surplus, had we had fewer interims. That's the answer to that would, I think, be quite complex, because had we not employed those interims, you know, what would have fallen between the cracks? We could have had a lot more issues and more costs. So I'm not going to offer to evaluate the savings we might have made had we not employed so many interims, because I think it's just too complicated an answer. But I'm sure, but I will be, you know, I'll mention the issue to the Chief Executive. He is here, so
thank you.
He knows what's being said, and I'm sure he's very aware of it.
Just call the Chief Executive, perhaps make a few sentences.
Yeah, thank you. And I think what would be helping you, if we set out within the current management structure, you know, the extent of the permanent appointments that are in place and those which are interim at this stage, and what's the strategies to support that interim approach and the plan to turn that into a permanent position. We all know that good permanent staff attract good permanent staff. One of the challenges that we and all local authorities across the country have is the ability to attract staff. You know, there's fundamentally, as we all know, a shortage of talent around the country, particularly in some of our top positions where we need expertise and experience to deliver the work that we have. But we carry on continuing to look for that expertise and experience that we need. But I think it'd be helpful to share with members to understand some of those challenges that we have and what the strategy is to replace some of those interims with permanent staff as part of our continued improvement. So happy to share that and update.
Thank you. I shall look forward to that. Now,
next speaker is Councillor Gandhi, number 2.
Thank you. Mine also relates to interims, although sometimes these interims do become permanent. I'm probably not alone in when I get an email to say a particular person has been appointed to a particular senior position, whether it be interim or permanent, to actually Google that person to find out as much information as I can. And on several occasions, and in particularly 2 occasions where those members of staff have gone very, very quickly, far sooner than they were, and it was anticipated, it would not have been difficult if some research had been done prior to their appointment to actually ascertain that they were totally unsuitable for Herefordshire Council. and that we should have avoided them like the plague. And so, therefore, I struggle to understand why we appoint, on occasions, senior staff into very important positions who, it is clear, when you just do a very, very minor search, have failed at the authority they were at previously and have basically just been come from there to us with us, I presume, knowing that they have not performed particularly well at their previous employment. Is it because we are so desperate to fill positions that we have to accept them, faults and all, or is it that we just don't appear to be doing enough research on people that we are appointing before we appoint them, and we only find out about the warts and all after we've appointed them?
Thank you, Councillor. Chief Executive?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Gandhi. I mean, we don't want to talk about individual personal issues here. That would be inappropriate.
Indeed.
But what I would like to do is have a private conversation about the examples you referred to. And, you know, for me personally, and it works throughout the management team, it's important we appoint the right people into the roles. And we have got numerous examples where we have failed to make an appointment because, you know, we don't believe we've got the right person with the right qualification. And we've gone out to the market again. And from my perspective, we will always continue to do that so we get the right person for the right role. As we all know, in interviewing and selection, sometimes that doesn't always go to plan. And I think it's equally important to make a swift decision when it's needed if the appointment hasn't worked. So those principles are important in terms of how we manage. But I would like to talk separately about the example that you've used and learn a little bit more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Question?
The last questioner we have is Councillor Ianson, number 1.
Councillor Ianson, which is this the same topic or another one?
New topic.
New topic. Excellent. On you go.
My topic is about Hoople. And I noticed that Hoople's recently won 2 awards, which is very good, but I often have a problem with my computer, not being very computer literate, and so when I look here and have the number to call for the Hoople desk, in the past, I've always been able to speak to somebody. Now, you can't speak to anybody. Is this going to be permanent? It doesn't have to go through computer things which, if my computer's not working, I can't do. Or if in the future, when you ring this number, will there be a person at the other end?
Good question.
Yes, Councillor Jansen, that really is going to the detail. I think we'll ask Hoople to contact you direct.
Thank you, because it is on the list, Hoople. So.
Yes.
I
think it's a fair question, and I think a lot of people also would like to have someone they could speak to. I think I speak for many councillors who do not want to just have a computer talking to them or writing to them. Yes. Councillor?
Next questioner is Councillor Marsh, number 16.
16. Councillor Marsh. Question?
Just to very briefly follow up our Chief Exec's point that good permanent staff attract good permanent staff. Some of us are very aware that next April will be 25 years since this authority started, and I myself know of some staff who have stuck with us all that time, and I wonder whether the leader might be prepared to have some sort of award to celebrate those who have completed that quite long milestone.
It is a milestone, I agree. Leader, what are your thoughts on this?
I think perhaps Chief Executive and I will have a discussion about that. Yeah.
Perhaps we all 3 of us might have a discussion about that.
Yeah.
Right. And shall be discussed.
Yeah, some councillors have done 25 years as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
It's almost a life sentence. Right, next question. Have we got more questions?
One more questioner, Councillor Shaw, number 12.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw, question please.
Thank you. A new topic. If I could refer to your report where you mention our Ukrainian refugees. I'm sure that all members of Council would like to join with me to thank the generosity of Herefordshire citizens in welcoming so many refugees to our county. Unfortunately, thank you. Unfortunately, the war looks unlikely to be over anytime soon, and your report reveals potentially we have many more refugees wanting to come. Can I request that the leader considers opportunities to encourage more homeowners to consider taking in refugees? I also note that the removal of a bus service from Worcester to Bromyard will adversely affect a newly arrived refugee family locally to me. So could he further consider whether the funding of the £10,300 could be made available to facilitate community transport to be used by newly arrived families, at least where they're finding their feet and where there is no public transport available? So a wider question, and I suppose a more focused one, referencing local transport. It may be that that 10,300 is already available to local transport organisations to help move refugees, but I think a pointed reminder in that direction would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Leader?
Yes, Councillor Short. Coincidentally, I had a briefing the other day about the scheme with Homes for Ukraine and the money which is coming from the government, and we've had some suggestions as to how that money might be spent. So the time of your question is very timely. I will ensure that that's considered by the officers as they look at this. And I think your question about this going on for longer than we had expected is a concern. The government funding is for a 12-month period. We don't know what will happen after the end of that 12-month period. One would hope that it will continue in some shape or form. And the contributions from those in the county are tremendous. The commitment, I think, for people is probably they're thinking maybe perhaps been 6 months for the first period, so far I have no intelligence as to whether people are saying, you know, at the end of that 6 months I can't take it anymore. We must find out whether there's a second wave and whether we need to find replacement places. But the response from the county has been very good. So we will look at that, and thank you for your interest.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Councillor Gandhi, number 2.
How many questions have you had?
This is her third. I've been counting.
You're allowed 3 altogether.
Yes, it's the third question.
I know that, Leader.
Just checking.
I would like to reiterate what Councillor Shaw has said. I am not in a position, due to the size of my property and things that I'm involved with, to host a family. But I did agree to act as a buddy for a group of an organisation that's running mainly from Lentbridine, and had the pleasure yesterday afternoon of looking after and taking around, taking the mother to her English class and then taking her 2 daughters, one 15 and one 9, around Ludlow, which is where the English class is, and giving them experiences, and obviously, like every other young person, buying ice cream, which they love, and chocolate. It was an absolute joy, and I would recommend anybody that is not in a position to take a family for whatever reason, but can act as a buddy, so that the host families who might want to go away on holiday for a couple of weeks have an opportunity. This particular family come from Middleton on the Hill, so they're in a very rural community, But it was absolutely amazing to talk to them, to show them things that they've not seen before, and they are just so grateful for everything that we are doing, and they are such fun to be with. So I would urge people, even if you cannot house a family for whatever reason, that you act as a buddy and help out where you can on the odd occasion.
Is that a question or just a suggestion? It's a very good suggestion. Do you have a question to add to it?
Well, perhaps the leader could promote that as an option.
I can convert that into a question, I'm sure.
Yeah, because most people, I think, look at it as hosting, and that is quite a commitment, as you say. It's 6 months to 12 months, and you know, that is a big commitment. But buddying is equally important.
Yes. I think your question probably is, would the champion be someone who could actually explain to everybody and get councillors together to come up with all these ideas? Which the answer is yes. This is the whole idea of the member champion. So if any more people wish to volunteer for that role, then please let us know, because those sorts of stories, Councillor Gandhi, we need to get out and explain to other people about them. So thank you for your...
Thank you, Councillor Gandhi. We have a comment, I think, from Cabinet Member Gemma Davis, 05.
Yeah, it's a question for the leader, and it might be one you need to take away. With the influx, and rightly so, of refugees, not just from Ukraine, but from all other parts of the world that are subject to war at the moment, it is becoming increasingly aware that access to critical services are going to become more of an issue. This also is reliant on population growth as well. I would wonder if there was any way of you clarifying for all members, how are we placing people to ensure that the services in the area are able to sustain the correct level, ensuring that there is equality to access of services across our county?
Leader?
Yes, thank you for that question. Again, I think I'll probably get an officer to look into that. It's an interesting point, because if we have refugees in Hereford or in one of the market towns, it's one way of solving the problems. They can go and walk and see things, whereas if they're located actually in a farm somewhere in the rural counties, it's a very different issue. So there are inequality issues there. I think the officers are actually quite good at finding schools and this sort of thing for people. So yes, I will get officers to have a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. And I'm minded to draw questions to the Leader to a close now. We seem to have had a lot of questions, and I hope we'll have a file full of responses, I think, as well.
Chairman, Councillor Stone would like to speak.
Councillor Stone, special dispensation for Councillor Stone. Best question. Last question.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Waste management strategy. I welcome and agree with the recycling targets that are mentioned in the strategy. My concern is about the potential increase in fly tipping due to less frequent landfill collections, especially in some areas. We already have excellent recycling facilities in Leominster, but there's still quite a lot of fly tipping in the Leominster area and elsewhere. Can the Cabinet member step up communications with parish councils and residents generally to fully explain how the new system will be implemented? I know there's been a very good consultation process, but I think a lot more communication is going to be needed to explain exactly how all this will work so that we do meet our recycling targets. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Leader?
Councillor Davis.
Councillor Davis?
Number 5.
05, please.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Councillor Stone, and thank you for agreeing with our targets that we're setting. It's interesting that one of the collections that will continue to happen, in fact more frequently, will be food waste, which will be collected every single week. Currently, 1/5 of all of the things inside our residence bin is food waste. And that's what we need to combat in the first instance, and that will continue to be done weekly. So that's really important to remember. The actual side of the communications, just last week, the next phase of our waste strategy was agreed, in which we talked about a communication plan and what we're going to be going out and doing to help residents. We've got a campaign called Getting It Right, and that is, it's recycling at its simplest. So what things can I put in my bin, what things can't I put in my bin? Apparently we're on TikTok as well. I haven't been asked to do a film, thankfully, but we are on TikTok. But we're going to do a full social media campaign, and Herefordshire Now to ensure that all residents are communicated with. And I absolutely take that challenge from you to do more with our parishes. They are key to getting the message out through our residents, and they probably deal with all of their residents on a much more frequent basis than we do. So I will take up that challenge, and I'm open to suggestions on how we could do that better.
Thank you.
Campaign.
We'll get you doing a TikTok.
Tip-top TikTok. Well done. Good. And now I think that is drawing the whole matter to a close. Thank you, Leader, for your responses, and Chief Executive. And do you need to go now? I don't. You need.
Not yet, Chair. Not yet.
No, can you? I know you need to be at Children's Services. What time do you have to go?
10 minutes. 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes. Right. Sorry about that. You all got coarse minds, I fear. Now we come into item 8, Brookfield Special School Capital Improvement Programme, Reprofile of Spend, pages 35 to 44. To approve an in-year adjustment to the capital programme in respect of Brookfield Special School project. Please find the report from page 35 in the agenda pack. The Cabinet Member, Children and Families, will move and introduce the report. 5 minutes. Thank you. 07, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, I'm very pleased to be presenting this recommendation to colleagues. If we vote for this, it enables us as a council to reallocate additional funding to improve facilities at Brookfield Special School in Hereford as part of a joint funded project with the DFE. Last week, as you know, Cabinet decided to accept the DFE funding offer of £4 million towards this. And if we agree to this recommendation today, it will mean that we will contribute around 30% of the necessary funding, with the DFE providing about 70%. So this is really good news for us. You'll remember that following funding allocations by full council in 2020, Cabinet approved spend of nearly £4 million to improve the premises, and since then the financial picture has changed to the benefit of our finances. So this report, which has all the necessary detail in it, is very straightforward, and it's just simply bringing us up to date. We have to make a decision today because the capital line for the project needs to increase, which means that a decision by full council is required, even though the DFE is paying the lion's share of what this is going to cost. As you know, these capital improvements to Brookfield School have been on the cards for years, and it's been quite a saga. Brookfield is Herefordshire's only social, emotional and mental health special school, and I'm sure all of you value their crucial work very highly. The school is in urgent need of improvement, and the recommendation before us today means we can finally get on with it, which is good news. As ever, when dealing with government funding, getting to this stage has taken up a great deal of time and energy, and I'm extremely grateful for the work that officers have done on this, particularly their negotiating with the DFE. I'm sure all of you are aware of the background to this decision, and as I say, there's plenty of all the background we need is in the report. I'm really pleased all members have had opportunities to ask questions and debate at the consultation in May, and that was recorded for those who couldn't attend. We're taking this decision in the context of demand for SEMH education continuing to rise very fast in Herefordshire. And I'm sure we all want to do everything we can to educate and care for our children in the best possible facilities while keeping them in county, and that's what this recommendation is for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The report now needs to be seconded, and I believe Councillor Harvey will second the report. Councillor Harvey, do you wish to speak now or after the debate?
I'll speak at the end, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. And we now move to the debate. Members are entitled to speak once during the debate for 3 minutes. Cabinet members responding to specific questions have a 2-minute time limit. Thank you. Now, the first questioner.
Councillor Lester, number 4.
04, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a really important decision, and I'm sure everyone will agree that it's the right thing to do. I don't want to stop a debate about promoting this valuable school and giving resource to it, but I think it's such a great idea. I just think we should move to the vote. It's been proposed and seconded, and let's get on with it.
Thank you. I think we might have 1 or 2 other comments made before we move straight to it. I think it's fairly obvious. Councillor James, is it?
Yeah, Councillor James, number 9.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to say virtually the same as Councillor, but not quite the same. I do recall it being opened, so it shows how old I am, on the old grandstand site of Hereford Racecourse. And, you know, it was the state-of-the-art facility at that time. And unfortunately, the need for this type of facility is increasing. It says something about what might be going on in society. And the sooner we move, get on and do this and pass this, I wholeheartedly support this. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor
Kenyon, number 26.
Matthews, I think, after that.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to say that I'm massively supportive of this. I've done voluntary work down there. I now come out with all sorts of different things. So I'm going to abstain from this vote. I feel I'm a little bit close to it, but I'm massively supportive of it.
Thank you. That is very sensible.
Councillor Matthews, number 21.
21, please.
Yes, Chairman, just to confirm what's already been said, my two independent colleagues and I unanimously support these proposals, and I fully support Councillor Lester that it be put to the vote.
Thank you.
Councillor Summers, 24.
Who have we got?
Councillor Summers.
Thank you, Councillor Summers. Number 24.
That's me. I think it's a great spend for the money, but the only thing I'm concerned about is traffic. We're in a high traffic area, and I hope that some of this money is going towards the traffic situation there, parking outside the school, etc., etc. And I would like confirmation that this is happening. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. We have
Councillor Ianson, number 1.
Answer to that,
We may
please.
call this the last one. Councillor Ianson, number 1.
Yes, thank you. Can I just point out to everyone that we are, in fact, corporate parents to 9 children who are at the school. So it has to have our complete full support, and it's fantastic.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Summers.
Yeah, I would like confirmation that this has been taken care of, that we are looking at the traffic
I'm sure,
issues.
Councillor Summers, you've made your comment. And made your remark.
It's a question. I like confirmation that that is being looked at. Thank you.
Councillor Toynbee?
Yes, this is specifically about the buildings, not about transport, but the transport issue in general is being looked at, and I completely share Councillor Summers' views on it. It's really important.
Thank you. Councillor Summers, I hope you're reassured. Thank you. Now, come to Councillor Harvey.
Number 5.
Number 5, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wasn't sure I was going to get to say anything, seeing as it had been put to the vote. I'd really like to thank colleagues for the support for this, and I'd just like to take a moment to thank officers and here in the council, and also the support of civil servants at the DFE end of things in helping to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think there are no further speakers. Monitoring officer, please can you advise if any amendments have been received?
There have been no amendments received.
No amendments received? Thank you. So the Cabinet Member Children and Families has a right of reply, 3 minutes only, if you wish.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm sorry. I certainly won't take up 3 minutes, and please excuse me in advance that I have to leave in a moment. I'd just like to express my appreciation for the support for this, and I'm really pleased that we can go ahead with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. We now come to the vote. I will call the vote, and members are asked to clearly raise their hand to indicate if they are for, against, or abstain for the motion. All in favour? Do you want to go? No. Okay. Against? Abstentions? Thank you. That is carried overwhelmingly. Thank you. And the report recommendations are that full council will agree to an in-year adjustment to the capital programme. I should have read this before, I'm sorry. For capital improvements of the Brookfield Special Pool as agreed by Cabinet on the 21st of July 2022 to be completed within a reprofiled budget of £5 million. I trust you're all still in approval. Thank you very much indeed. And you are now going to depart.
We are, thank you.
Going to go.
Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, thank you. Good luck. Item number 7, Stronger Towns Project Full Business Case Submission. Pages 23 to 34. To approve an adjustment of the capital programme to fund the project from the capital receipts reserve of up to £8 million for the Herefordshire Museum and Art Gallery project and up to £0.5 million to the Maylord Orchards Library and Learning Resource Centre project. Please find the report from page 23 in the agenda pack. The Cabinet Member Commissioning, Procurement and Assets will move and introduce the report. You have 5 minutes. Number 05, thank you.
I'm very happy to present this report outlining 2 of Herefordshire Council's Stronger Towns business cases and the financial decision behind them. I would first like to thank the team behind these projects. You have pulled out Herculean efforts over the past year to get us to this point today. I cannot thank you enough for the dedication that you have shown and the hours that you have committed for these 2 projects. I would also like to thank the Cultural Services staff for embracing the change and vision for the future of cultural services. You go above and beyond every single day, and I want you to know that we all know and appreciate this. I would also like to extend huge thanks to Herefordshire Museum Support Group, the Friends of Hereford Library Users Group, and the Friends of Herefordshire Archives for their commitment to our cultural services and for all their assistance in shaping these projects and services. I wholeheartedly include Councillor Christy Balderson within this thanks. I'm so grateful to have you as an ally, constantly shining the light on the difference culture can make to our residents. As many of you know, I was elected in May 2019. I was a new councillor. Indeed, I was elected as councillor for Saxon Gate on the Friday, got married on the Saturday, became cabinet member the following week. I thought at the time this was the most turbulent time I would encounter. Fast forward 3 years post-COVID, and as a proud NHS employee, I'm beginning to think that those were the easy days. I was faced within 2 weeks of taking on my cabinet role of the reality of a £250,000 savings target for cultural services. This would have meant, in real terms, the closure of our museum and archive service. 3 years later, and a huge amount of work, we are now looking at a multi-million-pound investment in these very services that were facing closure. The first project is the world-class museum celebrating Herefordshire and the history of the marches. This week has been full of ambition for Herefordshire Council, Cabinet approved the first waste collection by cargo bikes in the UK last week. Cabinet just yesterday approved the first wetlands project built to the standard required to trace phosphate credits, and I will correct, this is a global first, not a UK first. So it is pertinent that today we're talking about the world-class museum. What a better place to show off the Herefordshire hoard in a beautifully restored and updated building built to the very highest energy standards. The second project involves the relocation of the Hereford Library to the Maylord Orchard Shopping Centre. The new library, located at the heart of the city centre, will provide access to a reformed, modern service at an accessible location. The cafe and atrium meeting area will provide an area for people to meet and socialise, addressing issues with isolation and allowing people to access a range of public services linked to the Learning Resource Centre. The key components of these projects are accessibility and inclusion. The plans are extensive and they have had equality impact assessments before design and are reviewed regularly. It would be remiss of me to not take this opportunity to respond to a question regarding the access we are proposing to remove, which is the escalator in the atrium, which is considered end of life. I can confirm that the current escalator is not to a standard to be considered as disabled friendly. Indeed, research shows that for some with mobility issues, an escalator such as this actually causes more harm. The new design will adopt the social model of disability, this meaning that no one is born disabled, but it is the environment in which they exist that makes them disabled. We will be ensuring that there are 2 lifts for access to the top floor, but that the majority of services will be on the ground floor, enabling accessibility for all. Today, you are being asked to approve an adjustment to the capital programme to fund up to £8 million for the new museum project and up to £500,000 for the Library and Resource Centre. The Council is committing the funding to realise the vision of the Hereford Town Investment Plan, invested in the future of our great county, building on our culture and heritage to create a fantastic place to live, work, visit and invest. These 2 flagship projects are key to realising the vision of the Town Investment Plan, developed by partners through the Stronger Towns Board and through extensive consultation with local people. In taking these projects forward, we are helping to secure the £22.4 million allocated to Hereford by government. As set out in the decision paper, it is anticipated that the Hereford Museum and Art Gallery project will attract 75,000 visitors, directly spending £2.5 million per annum. But the true impact of a world-class museum and art gallery, uplifting the city centre, enhancing our cultural offer for residents and visitors alike, will have a far greater economic impact for many decades to come. The new library and learner resource centre create new reasons for people to visit, spend time and money in the city, as retail globally declines as a focus for centres. In short, the Council is using its funds to invest in the future of our county. I look forward to the debate.
Thank you very much. Slightly over time, but we were being lenient. Thank you. And now the report needs to be seconded. Who is going to second this report? Councillor Crockett. You will second the report, and do you wish to speak now or after the debate? You speak after the debate. Thank you. And we now move to the debate. Members are entitled to speak once during the debate for 3 minutes. Cabinet members responding to specific questions have a 2-minute time limit, and the Vice Chairperson will be keeping a list of members who wish to speak during the debate. Please can members indicate to the Vice Chairperson if they intend to speak. First one?
Yes, his first speaker is Councillor Stark, number 17.
Then Councillor Hewitt after,
Yeah.
I think. Someone else, that's right. Councillor Stark.
Yes,
Your
thank you,
number?
Chair.
17.
Yes, when I first became newly elected, one of my first issues was to fight against the closure of the Ross Library. So I'm delighted to be sitting here today to have gone from that position to one where we are actually investing in art and culture in Herefordshire. I fully support the proposals that we are actually being asked to debate and agree on today. But can I just ask the Cabinet member that we use this as a springboard to improve the arts and cultural offering across the whole county? I don't want this simply to be confined to Hereford. I want us to actually look at how we can actually make that offering better, not only in the market towns, but across the whole county as far as possible, so everyone benefits from this investment. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, do you want to respond to that? 05.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Stark, and I know we've had these discussions before. Absolutely fully committed to this being a hub and spoke model for both library and for the museums, which means that everything that we do and we attract to the Hereford City, we are able to spread out around the county. We're very lucky to have Herefordshire Art as a project, and I think that that for me is a really good format for how we are able to get our cultural services out in a much, much wider community where actually the community owns it. So absolutely on that, and I will fill up that little cabinet unit at Ross Library for you with some special treasures.
Thank you.
Next speaker? Next speaker is Councillor Swinglehurst, number 10.
Number 10, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's absolutely welcome, this report and this investment. It's a fabulous project. I'm so looking forward to seeing it come into being. However, I am going to touch paragraph 18 and 36. If the original assessment of income was found to be incorrect, and the projectability of the project to meet operational costs and create a surplus, what is the confidence going forward that we have got that right now? To my mind, there is without doubt headroom. There is without doubt huge potential here. Are we considering partnering with commercial, even sort of local voluntary commercial people to fully realise the huge potential in this project for income? And the other thing I'm just going to pick up on, the Maylord Orchards Library and Learning Resource Centre, is that what we're going to call it? Thank you.
We'll have an answer to that in a moment. Now, Cabinet Member.
Yeah, first bit, no, it doesn't roll off the tongue, does it? It was just a descriptor for the Strong Accounts project. I think that we need, the whole ethos behind it is actually that living, breathing space, and I think that we need something around that. So if anybody's watching and has got some brilliant ideas, send them in to us. Not having Maylord face or anything like that, though. The other question regarding income, absolutely, we will be working with voluntary organisations, commercial operators, and we are at the moment, I don't think we've recruited, but we are out for recruitment for a museum director with experience, exactly what you're talking about, which is how do we get proper investment into there, and how can we engage across the world rather than it just being a Herefordshire thing. So yeah, absolutely, that's their key target. I don't think, if I missed anything else, I apologise.
Thank you. Now, next speaker
is Councillor Hewitt, number 22.
Councillor Hewitt, number 22.
Thank you. Is my microphone on? I'm not sure whether it is. You can hear me, yeah. So, I just want to say how terribly excited I am about these initiatives. I just think they're utterly fabulous. But I'm going to follow on from Councillor Stark because I was up at Arthur's Stone talking to the professors leading the project there, and they engaged with me and were talking about they have some backers, American backers, who are part of their impact team. And I would really like us to be able to, use what we're doing as a springboard to draw in projects of this sort, so that please can we immediately have a booking space for the new museum, which will include the fantastic Neolithic information that's coming and changing actually the course of research about the Neolithic period in this county. It's a really important project, and I'm going to make a plea for the Golden Valley and the Neolithic period.
Thank you. Do you wish to make a response, or
just a quick one, just to say regarding that? I know Councillor Hewitt, me and you shared some very strong views on culture, but one of the things that is going to be the biggest draw for us is the Herefordshire Hoard, which actually does, I went to an incredible talk around it, where it talks about the fact that the Hoard actually completely retells the story of England and Wales and Mercia and Wessex. And for me, that has created so much interest, and we have people contacting us from all over the world asking us about it. So I think that's the springboard for me. We already had wonderful things in archives, but that's that springboard for me around the Herefordshire Hoard and how do we talk about history more interactively. And yes, there will be bookable spaces in the museum. That's part of the commercial side of the investment into that particular museum, is that we need to have bookable spaces for exhibitions and for talks, etc.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor.
Next speaker is Councillor Hay, number 23.
Off you go.
Thank you. Yes, and just to come back to the name issue that Councillor Swingle has mentioned, I think it might be an opportunity to get young people involved in some sort of competition, because they're the next generation of this county, and I'm sure they would love to be involved. And to go back to what Councillor Stark was saying about the using the county to be involved in this, and I appreciate people have felt like it has been a bit of a city-centric project, the town investment fund, but it isn't. And I know that Friar Street, we have such a wealth of items in Friar Street, and how we can extend the reach of those wonderful artefacts that we've got into the wider county, and I'm sure we'll be able to come up with a plan there. Having sat on the Stronger Towns board for 2 years, I've been through this journey as well with Councillor Davis and officers, and it has been quite a roller coaster of an experience. So really, it's such an exciting vision, and we have been living in such a cultural void in this county for so long that this is, I say, incredibly exciting, and I hope that all members can just support this wholeheartedly and find out how they can be involved. And finally, I really do think that I need to take the opportunity to thank Councillor Davis, because she's thanked everybody else, but Councillor Davis has, I think she's probably got some grey hairs underneath that dye, because it has been an incredibly arduous task to get to this point. So I wanted to say a big thank you to her, because she has had that vision. She has, along the whole entirety of this journey, thought about the equality impact of how we can make this project, be a project that will appeal to every single person that lives in this county, and to all the visitors, and hopefully lots more visitors that we get to the county as a result of this. So well done, Councillor Davis. Congratulations on all you've achieved.
Next speaker.
Councillor Matthews, number 21.
Chairman, Councillor Davis is well aware that we've supported this initiative ever since day one. We warmly welcome it as a group, but there are a few issues that concerned me. In paragraph 4, it says, as younger generations reach higher education age, they have tended to move away to access university education and don't have the higher levels to attract them back. Totally agree, but we've talked about this for many years. And I respectfully suggest, and my colleagues are of the same view, that until we improve, this will do something little towards it, but until we improve our infrastructure and attract the right type of businesses into the county, we're not going to generate those well-paid jobs we so badly need. The other issue is that I would question Councillor Davis, and perhaps you could tell me where the evidence is. The forecast proposed project will attract 75,000 people, generating 2.5 million. That's an awful lot of people. Can you give us some idea where the evidence is that backs up that statement? The other thing is, I fully support the comments by other colleagues about not forgetting the rural areas, and I've got to get a little bit of a pun in here. I had what do you call travel around Rotherham, and a high-class businessman took me around for the old day, and I met everybody of any relevance down there. And when I asked for the present employment figures, I was pleasantly surprised to find out that I've got more jobs on my ward than what's in Rotherhurst. So if we all aim for that same aim as I've got, we will be a very wealthy county. But if Councillor Davis, it's got our full support, but if she could kindly answer that forecast on the figures, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davis, 05.
Yeah, I can. I think it's paragraph 13 that we've got, where it says about the specific economic impact assessment that was done. What they tend to do is they look at similar sized museums with a similar type of attraction. So I know that they've looked at previous ones with other hoards, not as good as ours. So actually, those figures, I personally think, aren't as high as they could be. That is quite a conservative effort in which we need to do to show value for money.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Councillor Shaw, number 12.
Councillor Shaw, number 12. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the Cabinet Member for presenting the paper. Turning to page 26, paragraph 21, the report states that the Maylords Orchard Library and Learning Centre full business case can be found in Appendix 2. But on page 30, on paragraph 34, it then says that there's an announcement that there are no appendices to this report. So I fail to see how Council is able to consider the report without the business case being in the report. However, I referred to the paper previously presented at Cabinet, and in that, as I'm advised that there's a significant increase in the plan, presumably to bolster the grant application, of revenue generated and employment provided by the museum. I question that, and I'm still not satisfied with the treatment of business rates that has never been fully explained to me. Remember, colleagues, that the 8 million capital receipts that we're funding this with come from the sale of the county farms. And that, for me, is another instance of a city-centric investment coming from the countryside. In a meeting previously, I alluded to Maylord's project being this administration's white elephant. I regret that the combined project will now morph the elephant into their legacy of a bottomless pit, much like the West Midlands Community Hub in West Bromwich, which was finally shut after 5.5 years and £72 million of cost. Can the 151 officer provide Council with assurance that this project has been fully costed, especially in respect of ongoing revenue implications for the MTFS?
Thank you, Councillor. A brief reply from Councillor Davis, and perhaps the 151 officer might also add a few gems.
Yeah, I don't really know what I meant to respond to, so I will pass straight over to Section 151 officer.
Thank you. Can we have the mic on, please?
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, in terms of the business case, as Councillor Shaw indicated, it has been through Cabinet, so the documents and the appendices have been presented there. In terms of, is it fully costed? Yes, it is. In terms of, will it be delivered? I think that is the inference of the other part of your question, and the reality is that is part of the process to make sure that the plan that is implemented and is delivered, as Councillor Davis has indicated, we're in the process of recruiting a dedicated expert to run these type of arrangements, but I can't give a 100% guarantee that it will deliver, because we need to actually get the thing up and running to make sure that it happens. But I can give an assurance that we will monitor very closely and report its progress and its performance when it is up and running.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, have you any more questions?
Yes, Chairman. Next speaker is Councillor Kenyon, number 26.
Councillor Kenyon, number 26, please.
Bob was running his eyes laughing already.
That's it then.
I am, yeah. I've got 3 minutes, so I can string this
You have
one
3
out.
minutes, exactly.
Fantastic. So, with the kind of being male, stale, and pale and straight, I'm in the cancel concept. People want to cancel us out, I feel, a little bit in the world. However, I do speak to lots of people and get lots of opinions within the city. And being a city councillor, everyone sort of does like to chat to me and give me their opinion. So I'd like to pass on an opinion about this. First of all, well done, Gemma. It does a lot of work to get any project forward and through. But I kind of feel it's putting the baubles on an icing of a cake that hasn't been made. The bees on buses and mosses on the side of the street. Many residents just want to get around the city and it's being stifled. So with the enthusiasm that Gemma has put into this project, I feel that the Cabinet Member for Transport could, if he'd been a bit more like that, we could have been tapping into this Stronger Towns Fund for an Eastern City Bridge and for better road infrastructure. So I welcome this, but in the same light, the people out there think, oh gosh, there's another project by the County Council. When are we actually going to get around this city and stop being choked to death by fumes? So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davis will reply, and after that we have 6 more questions, and then I will draw this debate to the close. Thank you.
Just to confirm, this was part of the Stronger Towns project. There was a very clearly defined criteria for what projects could go ahead. Can you let me finish? Let me finish, please. Are you on mic? 05? Don't do it to me, please.
05, please do not interrupt. Be quiet. Thank you. Thank you.
I apologise.
Let us speak, please.
I'll withdraw that.
Anyway, so I wish people got as incensed about children's. But, right, the most important thing here, that Stronger Towns had a very set criteria. What we could have done is taken all of that money and put it towards projects that just directly came from the council. What we chose to do was give a lot of the projects to community groups, including the City Council, who are investing in bus infrastructure. But we also have a number of other projects that go a span across the whole of the city, and that was our preferred approach. To even contemplate the idea that we would have been able to get an Eastern Bridge or all of our potholes fixed, which is a different budget anyway, within the constraints of the money that was allowed on Stronger Towns, I'm afraid that is just a fairy tale. It would not even come close. That is a big road infrastructure project and would need its own. Stronger Towns was specifically about a project, and I'm really happy to share them with you, Jim, all of the things that could have gone into Stronger Towns. Unfortunately, that wasn't one of them. But I appreciate that's a question that I have been asked by the public, so I'm very happy to answer that question, and hopefully it provides a bit of clarity.
Thank you. Next questioner.
Councillor Ianson, number 1.
Councillor Ianson, number 1, please.
Thank you very much. Can, first of all, I just wave a flag for the Oasis, which is Ledbury in the county, which is a destination venue for poetry. And also, but what I really want to ask is, point 19, it says developed by an expert design team. Are we allowed to know who this expert design team is, or any more details on that?
I think your question is to be asked now and answered, I hope.
Yeah, what might be easier is if I send you the list, because it's actually quite a comprehensive list, and I'm happy for it to go on a website. It's got, we've had architects who are based in Herefordshire, who are experts on NFIT solutions, which is the big key thing of the museum. But there is a whole heap of people who are the experts that we've got on the team. More than happy to share them with you and more than happy to put them on a website.
And can you please send around all councillors, as always?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Right, next questioner.
Councillor Phillips, number 12.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I would congratulate Councillor Davis on this. I also was involved in many heritage projects, and in 25 years, I know the battle to try and get Friar Street built. and to get a place where all art collection was properly and securely stored. When I remember when I first became councillor, seeing where our art collection was at the top of a rickety staircase in the town hall, it beggars belief. And I think, you know, members who haven't got that corporate memory need to understand that Friar Street was very important. Secondly, of course, I then went about the Records Office and built Hark, where, of course, we used local designers as well, and I think that was state-of-the-art as well. It was unfortunate that austerity stopped us doing any more, because these projects were in line then for the Library and Museum, and it's welcome that government has changed its mind and now with the Stronger Town Funds has allowed these type of things. But be under no illusions, this is part of a journey that Herefordshire Council has been on since it started, to protect its cultural assets and to work on their proper display, and I welcome that. The only question that I have really, and it's been referred to, is you do need to be sensitive to those other museums. I'm aware that in Keynton and in Leominster, it is entirely voluntary that they rely on. And you know, when you see all this money going in, and understandably so, in Hereford, you do just need to have a bit of sensitivity and see what you can do to support that voluntary sector. Because as we know, that voluntary sector right across the piece is maturing and is not as vibrant as it used to be. And I think sometimes you've just got to manage the relationship, particularly when rightly we're investing like this. But by gosh, you know, even a trickle of that money in some of those voluntary museums would go a long way.
Thank you. Good words. Yes, I agree. I think most of us would probably feel the same too. Our local museums do need help and support. And perhaps you can funnel a little much-needed resource towards their way. Now, next one, please.
Councillor Norman, number 15.
Councillor Norman.
Thank you. Right, well, so many points have already been made, which I absolutely agree with. The need to reach out to the wider county, particularly important, and has already been said. The challenge to involve young people, and not just young people, but there are significant parts of our community who simply don't see history, culture, that sort of thing as being for them. And I think there's a huge challenge there to engage with people who don't necessarily see it as their thing, and yet there are ways in which we can bring it home and make it something that's important for everyone. And I think it's, you know, there are clearly some fantastically high-profile things, like the Hoard, found near Leominster, like the work that's being done at Arthur's Stone down in the Golden Valley. But in fact, we have, for example, I believe, more hill forts than any other county in the country. So there's all sorts of things like that that we should be celebrating and challenging. And of course, it's economically hugely important, massive contribution, as well as being important for our own residents. But I think the point made by one of our speakers about why weren't we spending the money in other ways also brings home how lacking in understanding we sometimes are about the importance to our health and well-being and development, that we have all these things around us. Life is a lot more than eating, drinking, sleeping, and so on. It is crucial for our development, our well-being, that that whole cultural, historic, creative dimension to our lives is celebrated, and that we have an opportunity to share in that. So I really welcome this and hugely support what we are doing for the whole county. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next speaker.
Councillor James, number 9.
Councillor James, number 9, please.
Thank you, Chairman. What's not to like about the particular project? I have to say, you know, I wholeheartedly support it. I have to say that, touching on what Councillor Hewitt actually said, we have a wealth of untapped resources within the county, sites that may bring up even bigger things than the Herefordshire Hoard. The Herefordshire Hoard. I've got 4 on my land. You know, from a Roman camp to a pre-Roman settlement, several burial mounds, and those sort of sites are littered throughout Herefordshire. It's an enormous area. It's the sort of gold rush area for people who want to find ancient sites in the county. And I'm sure in the coming years, long after most of us are gone, there will come some major, even more major discoveries within the county. But I have to also add that whilst I wholeheartedly support this, I think the rest of the county, the market towns also, are looking for some concentration, and the rural areas, in looking at capital expenditure. And it'll be interesting to see how much capital expenditure over the last 10 years has taken place in the market towns as compared to Hereford. That they're crying out for some capital expenditures, more capital expenditure in the capital compared to Hereford city itself. But the project itself, I hope it'll go. I mean, there's been some criticism of the business plan, or suggestion that it may. You know, I've seen hundreds of business plans in my life. Hardly any of them actually are achieved. Sometimes they're overachieved, but hardly any of them are ever accurate. But at times we have to travel in the dark and take that step, because the potential is too important. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I hope you find another hoard on your land. Be rather fun, wouldn't it?
And don't make us pay for it.
It'll be in the Keaton Library, I can tell you. It'll be
great asset, yes. Do you want to say anything about that at all? No. Thank you.
So
next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Councillor Howells, number 18.
Councillor Howells, number 18, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree entirely. This is obviously a really exciting project, and congratulate people on all the work done in it. And of course, like everybody else, I do support cultural-based spend as being absolutely critical to attract visitors for what is one of the most important reasons for tourist attractions is our culture. And as my fellow councillor in Ledbury said, we have the Poetry Festival in Ledbury, which is an important cultural attraction. But we are spending an awful lot of public money here, and I'd just like to ask a question on the objectivity of the decision on the museum. I'm not querying the Maylord's money, because that does seem proportionate to the expected return. And I think since we are spending a lot of money, we should ask the objective questions, what the options might have been. And 8 million, in terms of proportionality of the spend in return on just ahead of your museum and the gallery, if you look at paragraph 9, it says, in relation to the Stronger Towns Fund, we will work with partners to maximise the Stronger Town Fund contract up to 25 million awarded to Hereford, and to support investment programmes across all our market towns. So I'm clearly making a plea, same as other market town councils have been doing. And 8 million is 30% of the funds on the city in one project, if that 25 million is correct. I can't see from the report why we would lose 13 million if we didn't make this investment, as it says in paragraph 1A. I note on the business plan, on the return expected in paragraph 13, it says 2.5 million return, which obviously would, on that basis, would take over 3 years return, which is still a pretty good return, I agree, if it were managed. And in 18, it says the income generated report suggests the development will generate a surplus of income to the council, but not on the scale required in the short term. I'm not against this at all, as I think I've made clear. I'm really in favour of it and will vote for it. But I'm following other councillors and saying, did we explore in options in 1? We do not say we've looked at alternative ways to spend that money that might generate a better return on investment in terms of tourism income in the market towns, for example. So 8 million across 5 market towns would be a very valuable contribution to help increase our tourism. So I'd like to ask, what consideration was made on alternative countrywide investments that might give a better short-term return to further justify the spend on this particular project? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you want to make a quick response to that?
Yeah, if it's okay, can I pass over to Councillor Harvey, because she's been part of the project board and she knows about the finance side of it that answers Councillor Howell's question.
Right. Number 5, please, Councillor Harvey. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Howells, for your question. You know, as is stated in the report, this is part of the Stronger Towns project submission for the council, and that is a £25 million programme that is ring-fenced for the city of Hereford. So it's not been a case of the funding being able to be spent in other places. The finance breakdown for the museum investment, 5 million of it is coming from the 25 million of the Stronger Towns investment fund, 5 million is coming from Heritage Lottery, just checking, and the remains from the council, and indeed we're hoping that not all of that 8 million will be needed, but we felt that it's prudent, given the economic conditions and the cost of doing building work at the present time, that we have a substantial contingency fund associated with this. But these are, you know, once in a generation, once in 2 generation type investments, like the Hark was previously, and like other investments that this council has made in the past and will be asked to make again in the future. So this is really something that is delivering for heritage, for culture, for lifelong learning, and for the arts. And by doing that, it is feeding tourism, and massively importantly, it is also delivering brilliant resources that will benefit the whole county in terms of the health development and well-being of our residents. Yes, the intention is that the money has to be spent in the city, but what it does mean is that you can see the plans are there to benefit much more broadly the network of arts, culture and library venues that we've got throughout the county.
Thank you,
And that
Councillor.
will benefit us all.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Councillor Watson, number 25.
Councillor Watson, number 25, off you go.
Thank you. I just didn't want this moment to pass without mentioning that for me, building on what Councillor Harvey has actually just said, that the Herefordshire Museum and Art Gallery provides a hook to showcase our environmental heritage in the rural county. And I really want to mention Archenfield and Ergun, because I think that, yes, the museum might be sited in Hereford, but I really look forward to be able to see a festival of hedgehogs throughout the county, and to celebrate our unique heritage, and that it be quoted and noted in the county plan as well as the local plans. Thanks.
Thank you. Now the last question.
Councillor Summers, number 24.
Councillor Summers, number 24.
Thank you, and great work, Jem. I think this is phenomenal work. What I'd like to see, there's a lot of ancient sites around Herefordshire itself, I mean the whole of Herefordshire. I visited a few with my son in the last couple of weeks, Arthur's Rock, etc., etc. I was also in Worcester, and they had a place where they put some of the heritage around the walls, and I'm just wondering if we can have a mural with all the ancient sites in Herefordshire on that mural. It would bring everybody into the mix, all the townships, all the, you know, and let everybody be involved and show that it is a Herefordshire way of going, not just, because we're more than just Hereford, we are Herefordshire, and there are a lot of sites. And if you get at all spiritual, there are a lot of ley lines that don't know what each village is. It just crosses over and goes through on its own. Anyway, I would like to see a mural of some sort depicting all of Herefordshire, ancient sites. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Plenty of walls around here. I shall leave that in your care, Councillor Davies. And that is the end of the questions, or not the questions, but the speeches. Now, can we have, well, any amendments?
No, with the second, I'd like to speak.
Yes, we'll do that.
No, no
Yes.
amendments, Chairman.
Yeah. Seconder, Councillor Crockett, will you wish to speak now? 06, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, councillors, for quite a healthy debate. Although I do note the majority of it was very positive, so thank you for that. I would like to thank Gemma for doing exceptional work on this project programme, and obviously Roger Allenby and his team for the leadership on it. What we're looking at today is to consider the adjustment to the capital programme. We must remember this programme not only will support the economy of Herefordshire via greater tourism, but has the benefit of true social value. This investment is a new museum. In a new museum will enable this county to showcase our wonderful heritage, hopefully including the infamous hoard and anything else Councillor James can find. The Library and Resource Centre will facilitate our ambitions to bring health to our high street. This is a great opportunity to work together across portfolios for the advantage of the residents of this county and beyond. Therefore, I'm extremely happy to second this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, no further speakers, of course, and no amendments have been received, I believe. That's correct. Thank you. And the Cabinet Member Commissioning, Procurement and Assets has a right of reply for 3 minutes. Don't want to use it. That's fine, thank you. Can I read out the recommendation to you, please? And the recommendation is that Council approve an adjustment to the capital programme to fund up to £8 million for the Hereford Museum and Art Gallery project and up to £0.5 million for the Maylords Orchards Library and Learning Resource Centre project from the Capital Receipts Reserve. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. That is carried. Thank you. Now.
Hello? Hello, am I speaking with Sebastian?
Oh, God's sake. Bloody hell. No, he's not. Damn this. Tried to turn it off. It was turned right the way down. Terrible. Sorry about that. I thought it was turned off. Somehow it got through. Yeah. It is turned off now. And I do want to be able to time you. Now, item 10, motions on notice, pages 79 to 90. And before we commence the debate on the motions, I ask members to be succinct with their comments and to avoid repeating those points already made, so that those members who wish to speak have every opportunity to do so. The report containing the motions to be considered at this meeting is at page 79 of the agenda pack. Council has one motion to consider. I will identify a proposer and a seconder to move the motion. A debate will be undertaken by members on the motion and any amendments received, and then I will call a vote on any amendments and the final recommendation. So the motion is Cabinet Commission on Phosphates, and Councillor Fagan, I believe you're going to propose this, and Councillor Hewitt, you're going to second this. Councillor Hewitt, do you wish to speak now or after the debate? You speak now? Yeah. After the proposer, thank you. Councillor Fagan, you have 5 minutes to introduce your motion.
Thank you. Earlier this year, the Environmental Audit Committee on Water Quality in Rivers concluded that intensive livestock farming and poultry farming is putting enormous pressure on the Wye catchment. Cumulative assessments are not being made of the overall impact of all the intensive farms in the area. Each catchment should have a nutrient budget calculated. Pollution from all sources in the catchment must then be progressively reduced or mitigated until it does not exceed the capacity of the river to handle the nutrients. New poultry farms should not be granted planning permission in catchments exceeding their nutrient budgets. What we are asking is that we adopt a precautionary approach in planning and that the proposed new Cabinet Commission urgently ensure that the cumulative impact is taken into consideration for every planning application. Scientific evidence from numerous studies shows that source apportionment of phosphate from agriculture is 72% currently and growing. Phosphate contributions from new homes is less than 1%. Our house building industry in the north has been hammered with enormous economic and social impact on the county. Achieving nutrient neutrality in new homes is welcomed, but we must alter our planning position statement in order to address the agricultural impact of the phosphate load entering the Wye catchment. We have attached a planning position statement which correctly determines, through the Habitats Regulation Assessment, that permissions must determine beyond reasonable scientific doubt that alone or in combination with other plans and projects, there is no impact on the integrity of the Y catchment. This is the crux of the matter, and it is the cumulative impact that has been woefully missing from the core strategy since 2015, coinciding with poultry farming expansion in the catchment. DEFRA must step up and do a nutrient flow assessment of the catchment, enabling determination beyond reasonable scientific doubt that cumulative impact of any proposed development has taken place. We are operating a regulatory system without the required information. The catchment is now in crisis. We need the Environment Agency to use their regulatory powers to properly monitor and enforce regulations. We need a proper mapping system. This technology exists, and provide background data for manure management plans to see where the catchment is particularly sensitive, where manure is actually being deposited. It is extraordinary that in a catchment with so much livestock and a phosphate catastrophe, we have no scientifically informed data about where manure is going. The last water quality status of the catchment has not been updated by Natural England, currently unfavourable recovering, since 2011, and we need this piece of work done urgently as a priority before we produce a new local plan that will immediately be out of date. We must use our place-shaping powers to determine a pathway out of this nightmare scenario. The production of food is arguably the most important function in a society. Our farmers are invaluable. Many farmers are now choosing a different model of agriculture, one that is restorative and regenerative, and that acknowledges the ecological boundaries that we must now operate within to survive. We need to embrace a new vision for agriculture in our new local plan, putting in place the mechanisms to support and restore ecology and human well-being along our journey of transformation. Councillors, we know that the information we are currently using to inform agricultural development in the county is way beyond its sell-by date. We all have a role to play, from the very producers of the feed all along the supply chain to the very end, and we need to ensure that we have a proper and robust system in place to effectively and collectively turn the situation around. And that is why we are asking you to support this motion to ask the proposed Cabinet Commission to look at these areas with urgency and try and address these matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Now, Councillor Hewitt, you have your 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Fellow councillors, we voted unanimously for a water protection zone. It was rejected by Minister Powell on 2 bases: not enough evidence and potentially damaging to businesses. Which businesses, I wonder? Here's our evidence. Visible collapse of the keystone species water crowfoot, without which the ecological larder is empty and there's little or no habitat. The fish are hungry, the birds are hungry, and both the fish and the larvae are homeless. We welcome a Cabinet Commission, but this will take time, and we're out of time. Here are our policies, which as a new councillor I was really excited about: SS1, 3, 6, LD1, 2, 3, SD3, 4, and arguably LD4. They should all be used to protect our environment. However, we have allowed the damage to continue. Are we going to continue to be simply a talking shop full of sound and fury like me, signifying nothing? Or are we going to accept the call to act now? Are we content to rail at other councils, regulators, the government, industry, and yet not pull out all the stops to do everything we can do now? A little-known policy, E16, existed before our current core strategy. E16 was an intensive livestock policy. Yes, we had one. I quote, "Intensive livestock unit proposals would be considered both in terms of their individual impact and having regard to the cumulative effect of other and existing proposed units within the locality." These words, cumulative effect, disappeared from our current core strategy in 2011. It can't be coincidence that the massive proliferation of intensive livestock units in this county began from 2011 onwards, nor coincidence that the Refocus study tells us we have 11 years of legacy phosphate in our soils. This serious omission is having horrific, unintentional consequences, but is potentially terminal for our river. The live policy levers are in the core strategy, but where do they sit in the hierarchy when we argue the planning balance? This is the critical point. The planning balance, which we have been taught is a presumption in favour of development, is actually, SS1, a presumption in favour of sustainable development. Our current position is unsustainable. The world is altered, our soils and rivers, our ditches and streams are polluted with excess nutrients. Our economic and ecological health as a county is at breaking point. A new planning position statement for the whole of the local planning authority to include the tributaries which feed their waters into the main stem of the river over the border in Wales is an urgent necessity. We needed the precautionary principle and cumulative effect 11 years ago in 2011. A new E16 must be initiated as a matter of priority.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Now, we move to the debate, and members are entitled to speak once during the debate for 3 minutes. The Vice Chairperson will be keeping a list of members who wish to speak during the debate, and please can members indicate to the Vice Chairperson if they intend to speak. So, who's first on the list?
First on the list is Councillor Swinglehurst, number 10.
Number 10, Councillor Swinglehurst, off you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, I'm hugely in support of this. The Water Protection Zone motion on notice that was brought to Council by Councillor Stark was also reflecting a previous vote of the Nutrient Management Board, which I chair, which was a majority decision to request a WPZ, not supported by the NFU and the CLA, but other members of the board did support it. But I have got one or two sort of suggestions around this, that there's a parenthesis of "and all other river systems" in the actual notice, which it seems a little wide in scope. I mean, does that include the Amazon and the Danube? And so maybe a little bit more precise language around that wouldn't be a bad idea. And also in the second bullet point, development, we could maybe specify development as in housing, agriculture, industrial, to sort of, get that slightly more precise. Number 2, request of agency partners that the Environment Agency does something. The agency partners is presumably the partners of the Environment Agency, so there's something slightly kind of odd about the language around that. The second bullet point, referring to Natural England's data for water quality, I think is referring to the condition report, which is held up at the moment, and which looks at a whole bunch of stuff other than just water quality. So I think, again, sort of slightly more precision to refer to the condition report, which will look at the totality of characteristics for which it is an SAC. Number 3, what the local plan can do. We might be worth considering decommissioning. Can we do something in the local plan to encourage decommissioning, to try to reverse out somehow? Number 4, precautionary principle, really important. Cumulative impact, we need to have an eye on the catchment, so we need to have a talk with Paris, or we need to incorporate the Paris figures into our assessment of cumulative impact, I would suggest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Our next speaker?
Actually, Chairman, it's a very short list. Only Councillor Swinglehurst has indicated. Oh, Councillor Stark, number 17, and then Councillor. Yep.
Councillor Stark.
Yes, thank you.
What's your number?
Huh?
Number?
17. Yes, 17.
17.
Although I'm not 17 now.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's the microphone that matters.
Unfortunately. Thank you, Chair. In January, I brought forward a motion to this council on a water protection zone for the River Wye, and everyone in this room recognised the value of that motion and voted for it. Shortly afterwards, the Hereford Times had a headline saying, 2 years to save the River Wye. And yet here we are now, in July, still talking about this. I do support this motion. It may have its flaws, but it does show that we as a council are still trying our best to lead on this particular important topic. I would ask, though, that the Cabinet Commission that was agreed yesterday takes on board the actions in this motion, but more than that, goes to the heart of government, both Cardiff and Westminster, and point out that we are running out of time, that we cannot just keep coming back to this council and talking about this issue. Somebody somewhere has to stand up and be counted centrally. How we do that, I do not have an answer. But I do support this motion. I do support the Cabinet Commission, but we are running out of time, and somehow we've got to break through that logjam and get the government to recognise that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor.
Next speaker is Councillor Phillips, number 12.
Number 12, please, Councillor. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I believe that all development will have some impact on water quality, whatever type of development it is, and water quality is something that's very important. I do feel in particular that the expansion of the poultry industry in Radnorshire and Breconshire over the last 10 years has been the big boom in the poultry sector. Herefordshire has almost had its poultry boom before that. And of course up there they haven't got the depth of soil either. I believe that we need to be positive and proactive in our engagement with both agriculture and the storage works as well, where there is a tighter point of contact of release of phosphate. And in particular also, I would say to you that it is important to have that positive dialogue. I had a scheme in my ward, which is now coming to an end, called Go Wild in the Curl, where we looked in particular at the Curl Brook and the 2,000 acres, which included intensive poultry units, maize growing, you name it. There was also a nursing home there as well. And there was some very good work done, and admittedly it was their stats, but they were quite quality stats. They saw a reduction in phosphate of 20%. Now, I was quite shocked at the dismissive way in which several people and agencies who are key in this debate treated that work. And I am telling you all that if we are serious about this, you work positively and proactively with people. And that is the way forward.
Thank you, Councillor. And now we have
Councillor Wilding, number 25.
Councillor Wilding, off you go.
Thanks, Chair. So the response of the Government Minister to our water protection zone motion was total and utter rubbish as far as I'm concerned. It's just another example of how government policy and their regulations are woefully out of kilter with the actual situation in terms of the climate and ecological disaster unfolding in front of us. Another example is the planning policies of this government and outlined in our local plans. They're massively out of step with what's needed for us to address the climate and ecological emergency. So I welcome this motion as yet another chance for this council to reinforce our belief that action is needed now. And central government need to wake up and stop pretending they care about our environment and actually do something. So I support the motion, but I urge the Commission to find other ways, many ways, to make government start listening up, to make government start living up to the promises it has made the people of this country.
Thank you, Councillor.
Last speaker, Councillor Norman, number 15.
Councillor, off you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And really to emphasise, as others have, the absolute urgency behind all this. We have let things drift over the years. Councillor Phillips mentions the Curl project, which was essentially ignored, an opportunity for farmers to share some excellent practice and learning, which was not received in the way that it could and should have been done. We had an opportunity to have this issue on the risk register a number of years ago, which was not taken forward. The SDP that's been mentioned on intensive agriculture, again, this was put forward to council and was rejected. We have ignored all sorts of opportunities to start to put this right in the past. Let's not do that again. Let's get behind this and at least take a small step towards improving things. We know much must be done at the national level, but let's do what we can at the local level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We have one more speaker, I believe.
Yes,
and it is
that's
the last one. Who is it?
Councillor Marsh, number 16.
Councillor Marsh, number 16. Off you go.
Yes, I'd just very much like to welcome this. There are many inconsistencies in the position. For instance, the Environment Agency in a Freedom of Information request said that they get over 100,000. Well, the figures they gave showed that over 100,000 a year was coming to them for their role directly as regulators. So there seems scope there for them to do more. And there are also very contradictory rules about what you can do with sewage sludge and what you can do with chicken litter. So I welcome the Cabinet Commission and anything that we can do to move forward, including this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. We have sudden influx of members wishing to speak. Councillor, well, we will allow you to...
Councillor Kenyon, number 26.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm quite supportive for this too, but I just worry that it's got no teeth and we need to follow it through. I'd like to just highlight there's some really, really good farming practices going on in Herefordshire where they're not using pesticides and the like. So what we need to do is look at some of those and perhaps do a study on what they're doing and how they're doing it differently. And they're still getting yields that are surprising. They're surprising themselves with the yields they're getting by not using fertilisers and the like. So perhaps a look at good practice as well as bad needs to be done by this council as well. I can give you some names of farmers doing it too.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, Councillor Matthews, I believe.
Number 21.
We support this proposal in principle, but there's a few things in there that have to be closely monitored. The thing that caught my eye in paragraph 5, consider urgently how data sharing, data management and data visualization can support science-led and evidence-based decision-making at all levels across the stakeholders. That's a very interesting paragraph, but as I say, there's a few issues in there that's got to be properly managed, but in principle we support it.
These two want to speak, do they?
Yeah.
Two more speakers. Chairman, Councillor Harrington, number 6.
Right. Councillor Harrington.
Oh, number 6, thank you. Yes, I just want to echo the points made by Councillor Kenyon and others. We are not talking about farmers not operating correctly. They're operating within exactly the parameters that they are allowed to operate. What we're talking about is making sure that the regulations are correct and the support is given to everyone to ensure that we are addressing the issues that we face. I think that's very important to remember, and it is probably the producer that is our higher level rather than the farmers on their contracts that need to be having the discussions with.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor.
Last speaker, Councillor Harvey, number 5.
Councillor Harvey.
Everyone who's taken part in this debate. It's really important, and I echo what Councillor Harrington's just said, that we learn the lessons of the past in terms of the impact on our environment of development of all sorts, but that in doing so we don't demonise any particular market sector because everything was done legally at the time. And in fact, I was quite interested to note that the boom in applications for intensive poultry units here in Herefordshire followed on immediately from the animal welfare and good food campaigns that went on nationally, headed by celebrity chefs
and others who are really interested and concerned about school meals and the quality of our food, and absolutely the quality of life for our livestock. And that was reflected in the contracts that were put out by supermarkets, which were then responded to by the producer market. So it's a law of partially unintended consequences here, that we have the legacy problem that we do of phosphates now to deal with, and I think we just need to be really mindful of how we go forward from here, and making sure that we learn those lessons and that we try and anticipate some of those consequences so that we don't have to repeat them. I'm really supportive of this motion. I hope that the Phosphate Commission is going to be able to make a positive contribution. There's an awful lot of players very recently getting into this area, and it's good to see. It does feel sometimes that we've got more thumb than pie, but nevertheless, I'm glad we've got lots of people who are interested in helping to improve the situation, and I hope we can all get behind this motion and support the work of the Commission once it's stood up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. There are no further speakers. Monitoring Officer, please can you advise if any amendments have been received?
No amendments, Chairman.
No amendments. Interesting. Good.
Chair, excuse me.
And now the proposer of the motion has the right of reply to the debate. You have 3 minutes.
What I wanted to check was whether Councillor Swinglehurst's, what she had, her comments, whether she wanted to make those as amendments, but
no, I haven't had an amendment of that at my door.
If Councillor Fagan would care to have them as amendments, I'm happy for them to be so.
Well, I think it would be helpful. I mean, particularly the aspect of encouraging decommissioning of aged units.
So shall I run through them again and
Monitoring Officer, can you just advise on this particular one?
If the proposer is willing to accept outside of the council, if you discuss what you've just suggested, and if full council are happy with what Councillor Swinglehurst is suggesting and Councillor Fagan is happy with that, you can kind of discuss the exact wording outside of council. Is everybody satisfied with that?
Yeah. Councillor Shaw, you've got a problem?
Could I ask then us just to go over those amendments so that we're all clear?
Yes.
But this is not going to be an amendment now. This is a discussion afterwards.
Yes, but
yes,
we're agreeing. We're being asked to agree that we agree with the gist of the amendments, although they're not amendments.
Yes, it would help if Councillor Swinglehurst explained very, very clearly. Then we'll have a record of that to enable Councillor Fagan to actually change the word.
That's fine. Yes. I'm happy with that. Councillor Swinglehurst.
Right, will do.
A concise summary.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I've just got logged out of my system. Point number 1, the second bullet, which refers to development, might specifically refer to, housing, agriculture, industrial. It doesn't, in the mind of the reader, simply mean housing development, or we say all sorts of development, or something just to make that clearer. And the parenthesis "and all other river systems" is either removed or more specific. If it's all other river systems in Herefordshire, not what the intention is. Or the catchment, or
catchment might perhaps be the most catch-all, as you might say.
And then number 2. The heading is request of agency partners that, and then it begins with the Environment Agency. So you're asking the agency to ask the agency. So it just needs request that, the Environment Agency. Don't need the rest of the sentence. bullet point 2 under 2, I believe that the intention is to refer to Natural England's condition report on the SAC, which is still pending. So again,
Right.
just make that
Yes.
clarification. Number 3 are actions that could be undertaken via the local plan, that we could look at ways in which we can encourage and support decommissioning of intensive livestock units. And number 4, where we talk about cumulative impact, that we have a mind to the catchment-wide cumulative impact to include our local authority neighbours.
Right. Is that it?
Yep.
Yes. Are you happy with those discussion points for later on?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, do you wish to reply to the debate? And the 3 minutes, if you like.
Thank you. Yeah.
Councillor number 7, isn't it?
I've got the speaker. Thank you. I'll just be very brief. Thank you very much, councillors, for your debate around these issues. Obviously, this is a really important issue for Herefordshire and for the surrounding counties as well. You know, one that we've spoken about a lot. While there's a lot of pressure to change regulatory frameworks, we also need to absolutely do everything that we can within the council to make sure that we're supporting action that's happening around this issue. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. And now the motion is up on the screen, I hope. And you've all read them, I trust, as well beforehand. Can you see them? I don't intend to read out all of them because it'll take about half an hour to read them out, I think. And I think you can see them now, can you? Good, good. You can read them. Yes, good. Now, we move to the vote. I will call the vote, and members are asked to clearly raise their hand to indicate if they are for, against, or abstain for the motion. All in favour? Thank you. Against? Thank you. Any abstentions? That is carried. Thank you very much indeed. Welcome. Well done. Now, councillors, I'd like to thank all members of the public and councillors for their attendance at today's meeting. The next scheduled meeting of the council is the ordinary meeting at 10 a.m. on Friday, the 21st of October. And the time is now 12 minutes past 1, and the meeting is now closed. Can I check with the Democratic Services team that the live stream has been switched off and we are no longer broadcasting live or recording?